No, not that OBS.
There,
So funny.
did it work?
I stream too.
Did it work
There you
now?
go. There you
Yeah, I'm live. I'm live too.
Okay.
Yeah, there we
Sorry
go.
about that. Yeah. So I'm using OBS. So if you look at my YouTube, my layout is much different now than it was before. So we got like our upcoming shows on there, so people on the YouTubes can see all that stuff. But were you finished, Isa?
Oh no.
Yeah, sorry, Asa. I apologize. Go for it.
Oh, no problem. You're good, mate. So I was going to say that one thing I noticed he has, there's this particular rhetoric that's used. I have already won. I have defeated you. Epic fail. Epic fail. That was a phrase that it was like a really interesting rhetorical device, and it's like it's sort of like this kind of gaslighting that kind of makes you feel that you failed and you've lost by just repeating it over and over again. Um, and there was this other thing about I can only handle one thing. I can only handle one thing. And I honestly really like that Mark kept his feet to the fire and he's like, okay, you're saying the text is scientific. All right. Can you tell me about, the shayateen? Can you tell me about the junoon? Can you tell me about these jinn? What's going on here? Are these scientific? Is God scientific? Are prophets scientific? Well, if these aren't scientific, then how is this a book of science? And I think that that's a very good, syllogistic argument. And I think it was interesting to see the kind of narrative of like that, Nadir was like, well, look at these things. They correlate with science. Here's this article. This article shows they correlate. But then I think, or Brad, rightfully so, said, okay, well, if you open up a scientific textbook, do you find poetry in it? Do you find, like a haiku or a limerick? Do you find this poetry in your biology side? I mean, that would have been awesome when I took anatomy and physiology. I'm like, can I have some limericks and some haikus and some what is that? What is Shakespeare's thing? The
sonnets.
The sonnet uses that rhyme scheme, the pentameter.
Iambic pentameter.
Yeah, the iambic pentameter. I'm like, can I see that in my science book? I want some iambic pentameter in there. But I think that's a really good argument. It's saying, look, is this a scientific book or is this a spiritual book? They're not the same thing. And I would say, like with the Tanakh, with the New Testament, because he was trying to challenge in the last debate with Ozian, he was challenging the argument about the mustard seed. And he's like, look, this isn't science. And I'm like, hey, brother, it's not meant to be science, It's not meant to be a scientific point. But yeah, that's kind of the several highlights that I saw in the debate.
By the way, Mark is really fucking good at holding people's feet to the fire. I've seen him do it so much, and I fucking love. It's one thing he does I absolutely love.
Oh, thank you. I'm really embarrassed now. I'm getting all this praise. Thank you.
I just want to thank Robin Williams for the $2.
Webster, please. Williams passed away, unfortunately, but Robin Webster will be here to support us for a long, long time.
Yes, Robin Webster. I've done that again. $2 super chat. Saying somebody is the Kent Hovind of Islam. At least he doesn't deny evolution. I asked him that question in my debate about evolution of humans, and he said no, humans didn't evolve. So his argument evolved from my debate to your debate.
So he had a weird position on evolution as depicted by the graph. He kind of had all the Australopithecus and all of the sort of early hominids in there, but he had sort of Adam being shunted into them kind of thing somehow. I don't know how that works. So it isn't quite in alignment with what evolution says, because he still thinks that Adam and Eve were created and were the precursors of humans. But yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange.
I agree. Round the table, Max, what was your take on Nadir and Mark tonight?
Well, I like Nadir not obsessing over the Bible. I gotta give that to him. This debate was a little bit more on point. I do have to give him a little bit of a scolding because he just hand waved everything Mark said. So he went like, "Oh, give me an article, give me a paper and a contradiction on the Quran." And Mark did that repeatedly, and he just never addressed it. So he gets a scold there. So one on one, and then Mark today, like, he's a really seasoned debate. He came prepared. He knew exactly what to do. So I'm starting to suspect that Mark might be a prophet.
Like,
You mean Brad?
yeah. Brad.
Yes, Brad.
Yeah. I'm going to come out with the book of Brad. Just watch out.
Oh.
Really quick, I got a super chat. I'm not going to be able to share the super chats. We're doing a new thing. We'll get it sorted out. Be better next time. But from David's for 5 of those pounds, maybe those are Australian dollar thingies. To see with the 2 lines.
Euros. I see 5 euros.
Oh, it's euros. Oh, 5
Yeah,
euros.
euros.
Thoughts on the
Come
deer,
on,
basically.
buddy. Euros.
Whatever. Thoughts on the deer? I know what, like, pound sterling. I don't know. Leave me alone. Yeah, it's like an E. Thoughts on the deer, basically saying the Quran can't be wrong because it's the word of God, and therefore it can't always be interpreted in the correct way.
I heard
And
that.
maybe Justin can give his opinion on that and on the performers, and then we'll go down to Mark.
You want me to give my opinion on the super chat?
Sure.
Thoughts on Nadir basically saying that the Quran can't be wrong because it's the word of God, ain't therefore it can always be interpreted a correct way. Yeah, the Quran can be wrong. It is wrong. What do you want? I mean, that's it. Yeah, you know what? Every time I come onto an after show, I'm either usually the moderator on the debate or I'm kind of like trying to sit on that fence. Well, I broke my fence. I'm not sitting on the fence this episode. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. Now,
Okay.
let's start with Mark. Full disclosure, Mark and I have been streaming video games together every morning for like the last 2 weeks. I may be a little biased, but I'm a little upset at Mark right now. I had no idea he could dunk so hard. That opening statement was amazing. He could have just stopped talking at that opening statement at the bottom line. He showed scientific textbooks. The Quran doesn't fit on the same shelf as these books. Game over. It's not scientific. That's all I need to say about that. Nadir. Well, Nadir reminded me of when I was a child running around the yard playing with my friends. We would play finger guns, right? Pew, pew, we shoot at each other. Nadir was the kid that never got shot because he always had his shields up and always won the game. He was always that kid. He's like, no, I dodged it. Like, no, you didn't. Now, the only way that I can really, really explain Nadir's debate style is if I can share my screen. Can I share my screen?
You can.
I'm going to share. So,
are you talking about all the times you wanted to share a screen, or do you actually have?
No, I'm going to share. No, I have to share my screen because there's
Oh.
another book that's scientifically accurate. Not only is this book scientifically accurate, but it even helps the Quran's case. So this is a book called Green Eggs and Ham. Okay, and I'm going to read a passage from Green Eggs and Ham, and it says, I like green eggs and ham. I do. I like them, Sam. I am. I would eat them in a boat. I would eat them with a goat. I would eat them in the rain and in the dark and on the train. So this right here proves that the Quran is right, because if you don't try it, how would you know if you don't like it? And that's my impression and interpretation of Nadir's debate style. Pew pew, shields up, he wins, and green eggs and ham is scientifically accurate.
Yeah, but you didn't interpret that verse right, Justin.
I can interpret it any way I like, and it will always be correct, regardless of cancel culture or whether they decide to discontinue this book.
Well, you've read it, and you just read it, and you understand it by reading it, right?
You know, your green could be our blue, Justin.
Do we even have inner qualitative experiences?
Also, I don't think the book ever mentions green ham, although the ham is always pictured as green. So I don't know.
Scientifically inaccurate, or
Maybe.
is that?
Anyway,
I didn't give my opinion, I guess.
well, no one asked.
Yeah, nobody
so,
cares.
Ozian, what did you think of Mark and Nadir's debate tactics and style?
I think Nadir was predictable. He did the same thing he always does in every single debate. I think Mark did what he intended to do there, which was fine. He wasn't playing by Nadir's rules. I liked how they gave you guys were getting like 2 minutes each and so Nadir couldn't filibuster the entire stinking debate. But I also had a different tactic than Mark did, I think, because I was trying to appeal to Muslims to not accept the Quran as being a source of scientific knowledge versus like as a overall argument. And I do understand like Nadir's using a tactic when he's like being dismissive like that and just dunking on people, and it is like a form of poisoning the well and sophistry, rhetoric used in a negative way. He's not engaging honestly with the interlocutors and not coming to the same place they are at. When it came to like unscientific versus beyond the scope of science, like if you look at the definitions of those words, unscientific could be towards any type of claims that aren't using the scientific method, where beyond science are claims that you can't understand through science. But Mark was clearly using the word to mean beyond science. Like, and unscientific encompasses beyond science and pseudoscience and the whole gamut of stuff. So like Nadir, I think, was being pretty dishonest by saying that wacky quacky, whatever the heck, and it's a dishonesty, and I don't think he should be engaging that way with people. So, but that was my response. I guess we could go. You want to respond to that super chat, Brad, Mark? Since
Which one? Which one?
The one about where
divots?
where he said basically the Quran is true, and he would never accept the Quran would be false.
I wouldn't mind. The best question, I had a thunderbolt moment in the Q&A where the best question was, well, what if the science turns out to be, we're wrong about that? Will the Quran be wrong? And he basically said, well, my interpretation would change so it's right. And that was the best question of the debate, in my opinion. You know, that's just from my perspective, because it just shows that it ties into the initial statement that I made, where their interpretations will change to fit, whatever the evidence shows, kind of thing, rather than your understanding of science changing based upon the evidence. I think it was beautiful, and the fact that he couldn't just say no. If something changes and it turns out that the barrier in the ocean is wrong, then the Quran is just wrong. The fact that he can't do that shows it's not a science book, because that's what we'd expect from a science book. If we learn something and it shows the book to be wrong, we bring out another edition and update it. We change it because it's wrong. And that just shows that it's not a scientific text, because that's what a scientific text would do. So I think that was the best question I asked all thing. That, by the way, that 2-minute thing, that was at Nadir's insistence. He wanted that really badly.
He needed it.
Sorry?
He's the one that needs it because he won't, like, whatever. Good.
He was insistent on it. I'm like, I'm fine with the back and forth, but if you want to, and he's like, yeah, I want 2-minute intervals so we both get a chance to speak. And it's like, okay, cool. Sure, I have no problem with that. As always, I took copious notes, so 2 minutes doesn't bother me in the slightest. So, yeah. But I'm just making clear, I didn't insist on 2 minutes. That was Nadir.
Yeah, I hate that 2-minute shit.
Yeah, I like
I
back and
personally
forth.
Yeah, I
then you
prefer the
can't
back and forth.
can't freely ask questions, you know, which I do anyway. I
Right,
just
right.
ignore it. Ask questions when I want to ask questions. I'm sorry, that's just the way I am.
We're all aware of that, Leo. Everybody is aware of that. But I'm fine with the 2 minutes as well. I can, that's a debate style. I can adapt to it. I'm happy in that thing as well. So I think Nadir maybe was trying to throw me off. Maybe he felt like I would dominate the conversation because I am pretty quick at talking. I can interject quite effectively. Maybe he was afraid of that. I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking, but
Dishonest people tend to be.
Sorry?
You said I don't know if he's afraid of that, and I just said dishonest people tend to be afraid of the people who ask the questions and are actually trying to get some truth out of what the other person is saying.
But yeah, I that was a fantastic question that I think needed to be asked, and I think it sort of put a nail in the coffin of whether it's scientific. If it can't be updated to include relevant information, then it's just not scientific. And the weird thing was that he said there's some things that are absolutely settled in science, and it's like, no, Nadir, it's not. Everything is always, and because it's the Q&A, I couldn't interrupt, and that's okay. But it's always up. Like if you come out with something saying that, hey, actually, not washing your hands is actually good, then that will become the science. Like nothing is set in stone with science.
But I do think it is true there are certain things that are settled in science. Just for example,
pretty
like
much.
this phone is made of atoms, that's settled. That literally is never going to change because we know that macro scale objects, that matter is made of atoms. We might refine our understanding of what atoms are and how they interact with each other and things like that, but it will always be true that this phone is made of atoms. Humans 5,000 years into the future will be using general relativity and things like that. Yes, there are
what if
some things
simulation
settled
theory
in
is true?
Science.
What if simulation theory is true? What if
those things would still be true for us in the simulation, and so ultimately, I don't think it matters.
It's like a Newtonian versus Einsteinian.
Right. Yeah. Well, I wanted Samir.
I like the 2-minute timer. I think it was a very nice change for a debate, and I think it also just showed the audience who's always going hard on MDD about like their level of moderation. It's like we're just providing the platform and the moderation. This debate style is like pretty much up to whoever's coming on stage. So if Nadir wanted a certain format and Brad was willing to agree to that format, hey, that's the format we're going to provide, right?
Yeah.
Are we rolling with this Brad thing?
No. Really quick, Samir, for saying when I say it's a dishonest tactic, it's definitely a dishonest tactic. You can disagree with that. But when the person is when he's saying he agrees with the definition you're using, and then the other guy says, no, you're not, that's dishonest, dude. You need to come together as an honest interlocutor and come to an agreement on definitions. And Mark was agreeing with the definition, and Nadir was insisting that he wasn't. So that's dishonest. I'm sorry. And my favorite,
get a definition out of him. It was like pulling teeth trying to get a definition of science out of the man.
My favorite anti-fans in your audience too. I think Mark, if he wants to come up on stage, he can tell me how dishonest I am if he wants to. But anyways, go ahead. So what did we think? Go ahead. What was that?
Oh, sorry. I was going to add one thing about the science element. I think that was a big problem, and I think it's a big problem in these debates is religion, science. Do these people have a background in science? Do they understand scientific method, scientific theory? And I think a lot of the time they don't. They don't know what the work requires. Or if they do, they do these weird kind of like conflation tactics where they're like, here's my spiritual text, and I'm going to, this is where the text, resides, and then I'm going to put a bullseye around it. Thus, hey, I got a bullseye. And I think it's a really dishonest tactic of the way to deal with this type of situation. Again, like saying, hey, I washed my hands, and then trying to equivocate that with germ theory is really fallacious, and it's problematic. And saying, oh, hey, look, there's this, there's some kind of meteorite or there's something in the sky. It's very vague. I'm going to make it specific. Thus, my specific interpretation is actually fulfills whatever this vague narrative is. This is not science, and it's not, and it's really dishonest, I feel, and I don't think we should do that with any scripture.
Can I add on to that? Because that takes me back to my debate with Ross and you also mentioned, like, it's not just understanding like what science is, but how it's done. And I think that's really important, because that the data analysis, the statistical analysis, all that stuff that is done, particularly in the modern age in science, is very important to understanding what science is. And I brought that up with Ross and he just kept rejecting that. But also with the other thing that you said with this, like, washing hands, I agree that that's like, if you 2,200 years ago happened to notice that if you wash your hands before you eat, you get way less sick, way less often than everybody who doesn't. Like, yeah, a human is going to be able to pick up on some causative, factor playing into that. But that's not science, because science is more rigorous. It's more systematic than that. And something like germ theory is much, much more systematic than just making this correlation between washing your hands and getting sick way less. So like Issa was saying, when people try to equate the two of those, it's just never going to work, because science is not just a set of methods. It's how those methods are used, how they're implemented, and the processes that arise out of their application and that are involved in their application. And one thing that I think that a lot of people miss, and this will be my last point, is that science is very processual. Science isn't a thing so much as it is a process. And that's why, as Mark was alluding to earlier, science leaves room for correction, because it's a process.
Well, I want to push back on that a little. Because you didn't see my intro, did you, Leo? Okay, Leo's gone. Leo has been cursed. So
no, I was shaking my head. I didn't know.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I went through the problem of demarcation, right? And this is where I tried to be very fair and say, hey, in science, there is a problem of demarcation. What we consider science is to not science. There are certain things that we consider scientific that wouldn't follow that specific process. Like in my example was the Chinese have very exacting astronomical records that they may not have used a falsification process for, that still would be counted as science because they are incredibly accurate and they were used through observation. So I think that while in principle for today's science, you are correct, Leo, I think you're mostly correct. And I'd reference sort of Popper's idea of falsifiability as being one of the criteria to being scientific. We have to make allowances for things that are gathered empirically through observation and sort of methodological needs that may not have that exact process. So there is a bit of a demarcation problem. And but we can at least say, hey, if the evidence isn't gathered in an empirical, systematic way, then it isn't science. Right. So we can at least say that, even if it doesn't follow the very strict definition, which is, observation, questioning, testing with falsification, publishing, all that kind of thing, and review. So I did use that example, and that's something that Nadir could have, tried to wedge into and say, hey, well, science isn't absolutely set what is science and what isn't. But I don't think he really paid attention to what I was saying, because I actually gave him a huge opportunity, because I wanted to be honest and say, hey, like everybody admits there's a demarcation problem in science, but I think that we can make some pretty definitive statements on, and that's why I went to the statement on what pseudoscience is from Sean Rafferty, that basically, the evaluation of evidence when it changes to match a prior ideology, that is never science, that is always pseudoscience. And that's really important.
I also just want to point out, for the audience's sake and the people on stage, because everybody knows Popper. Everybody knows about Karl Popper and the criterion of falsification. But what a lot of people who a lot of people don't know about, who has excellent, beautiful work in the philosophy of science, is I believe he was a Hungarian logician, mathematician, and philosopher of science by the name Imre Lakatos. And he wrote a book, what is it? The Something of Scientific Research Programs. Of course, I'm drawing a blank on it, even though I've read the fucking book. And he lays out his own sort of picture of what science is that helps us to demarcate what science would be from what pseudoscience would be. So I just wanted to mention him because I think his work in this area is really, really good. And I encourage people to go check it out. The Methodology of Scientific Research Programs. That's a book that I would recommend.
I just wanted to say real quick, it was very interesting, Mark, what you just said, and Leo, you kind of elapsed on that really quickly. That when you were talking, Mark, about the Quran having scientific flaws, and you were specifically grilling Nadir on the definition of what science is, he said that science is just the consensus amongst scientists.
Correct,
and also in the same phrase used the term, and I quote him, empirical methodology, which I thought was very contradictory to the first statement.
Yeah, this is a problem. Like his argument, he's not making this, he's not distinguishing clearly between non-scientific claims and scientific claims. So I think his argument is anything that's not explained by, that doesn't agree with science in the Quran is a miracle. So it's not knowable through science. So there's no possible way that the Quran could contradict science.
You mean a scientific miracle?
Yeah, like he's
God,
just
I still love that
defined the
term.
Quran that way.
Oh my god,
it's a contradiction in terms, and
Yeah.
the way that he's sort of misrepresents all of scientists and say, "Oh, scientists admit miracles and all of this." It's sort of. I looked up his nun example. I didn't have time to get to it, but he sort of said, "Oh, this nun kind of thing." Yeah, I found that under incorruptibility. It actually it was opened by a mayor in 1919, and it was repeated in 1925. The face and hands were covered with a wax mask. That's why it looked like it hadn't decayed. Yeah.
And then even the same thing where he's saying like science is just the consensus among scientists. I mean, at one point the consensus among scientists was that to cure your headache, we'll drill a hole in your head, and by his
That'll
definition,
relieve the
that
pressure.
would mean, that would be perfect science. That everything's that's it, and that's his argument, his foundation for this must be true, with complete disregard to the fact that no, we figured out a better way to take care of headaches. We don't have to take a drill and a stone and go into your brain.
Yeah,
Though I will say,
some things are inaccurate and still scientifically discovered, kind of thing. I will say that. Like I was bringing up that book of the Aether, basically, that, hey, it does have scientific concepts in there. There's galvanization in there. There's conduction of electricity in fluids and solids. It does have some correct information, but it is scientifically inaccurate. And that book was scientific. It just wasn't accurate. So we've got to sort of, some things that are scientific isn't accurate, and so when we say scientifically accurate, we're saying phlogiston, right? Like it may have been scientifically investigated, it may not be accurate, and that's okay. That's, it's like, so if somebody is researching whether there's miniature black holes kind of thing, they're still doing science. They're not actually accurate in what they're doing. Like, if they say that it's but just the investigation.
Everyone working in string theory.
Wow, shots
making
fired.
bold claims out here today, boys.
Talking about this is like a third of the physics community.
It's not pseudoscience, though.
And physicists should go into string theory. No, it's not. It's not pseudoscience. And physicists should go into string theory because there's a lot that we can still probably learn about our reality from it.
Well, when they were talking about this whole nun thing, I was a bit busy trying to moderate the chat because it was just me and Isa there. But did I hear that he said that tears are made of olive oil?
No, that was something else he was talking about.
No, he was talking about a sculpture that cried milk kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where did the olive oil part come? Because I heard olive oil, that's for sure.
Yeah,
was it Greek?
It was a statue of Mary that was supposed to be crying olive oil, I believe.
Oh, I thought the statue was like period blooding. Wait, no, that was a South Park episode. Okay, no, I'm sorry. Continue.
Well, I love how he sort of says, "Oh, these miracles," but they're not miracles; they're actually demons, because he doesn't want to give Christianity the credit for those ones. So he quickly sort of says, "No, they were provided by demons." It's like,
Freudian slip.
Maybe.
Yeah, I still will not grant him that the Quran got hand washing right, because it didn't. Quran did hand washing for ritual and nothing to do with hygiene, nothing to do with anything at all like that.
Look,
so,
Oz, I won't
It's
die
also
on
Jewish.
that hill.
It's also
I
a
get
Jewish
it.
thing.
Okay, so I won't die on that hill, right? There's no reason to, because you can say, hey, maybe it did get this absolutely 100% correct. It doesn't matter. The question is, did they arrive at that scientifically? And no, they did
exactly.
not. There's
also a
no
thing the Catholics
reason to fight over these tiny little things when you can point to glaring, horrendous errors in the Quran and sort of say, hey, that is not accurate to science in any way. And if it was, you wouldn't have to take these massive leaps of interpretation that he is doing to say. But I loved. So number one, here's my thoughts. Okay, I'm going to share with you my thoughts. I have to get this out before I explode. Number one, he's sitting there talking about atheists like, oh, you know, you're debating these nameless weirdos on the internet, and I felt like saying, Nadir, you're a nameless weirdo on the internet. Like, I'm really sorry, mate. It just that's just, you know, you don't have a huge following. You're not a celebrity. You're just, you know, like me, a nameless weirdo
like
on
me.
the internet. That's what. Yeah. Whatever. And then right, it's sort of the leaps that he's making, and he went from lamps to stars to lamps to meteorites, and it's like, dude, make up your mind. And then he accused me of doing that. And I'm like, what the hell? Like I said, oh, these are stars. Oh, it doesn't say stars. It says lamps. Ha, how wrong you are. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you said that, because NASA doesn't say that stars are lamps. And he's like, oh, well, no, they're stars. What? I don't understand. Sorry, I had to get that out. That was too funny.
did want to touch.
I knew the Quran better than Nadir when it came to hand washing too. Like, he didn't know that was in the Quran. It's so funny. Like, I don't think he's that good with science or the Quran. But go ahead, Issa. Sorry.
I want to go through the religious argument for this. Where is this coming from? So this is coming from the Hebrew tradition. So the idea is, and this is a problem that I've seen with a lot of Muslim apologists, is that they want to deny the Hebrew tradition. They want to say that this Hebrew tradition doesn't exist. And they're like, well, they're all Muslim people. And I'm like, but they're Hebrew people with the Hebrew distinction. So they have a Hebrew culture. And it's like you're doing something that I think is, as a DEI person, is very problematic. You're doing cultural erasure. You're doing an erasure of the Hebrew tradition and trying to say, I'm going to Arabize it. And I'm like, no, these people were Hebrew people. They had a Hebrew culture. So what were they doing? Where did this thing come from? This hand washing practice is a Hebrew practice. So that's a really important thing of engaging this situation. So the idea is it's a spiritual purification. It's not like a physiological purification. And that's the problem. There's a conflation, because they're saying, oh, wow, look, we know how to wash our hands because it makes us clean. No, it's not about physical cleanliness. It's about spiritual cleanliness. That's why you have things in Islamic tradition like wudu and ghusl. Wudu is like a smaller purification, and ghusl is like a bigger purification, like a shower. But these are all spiritual purifications. You don't need to use shampoo or soap or any of those things when you're doing this stuff. So that's the problem. You're like, hey, I'm going to take this thing that's supposed to be spiritual, and then I'm going to make it into this thing that's like medical and physiological. And I think it's disingenuous and problematic, personally.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it's about, because the Catholics have a similar tradition where the priest, before breaking the Eucharist, washes his hands. And in fact, this has happened in every Catholic mass I've ever been in, speaks the words, Lord, wash away my iniquity, cleanse me from my sin. It's a spiritual cleansing before touching and handling the body and the blood of Christ. That in the Catholic tradition. But I also wanted to add on to what Mark said, because he kind of touched on this a little bit, and I think it's a good point, is that it's possible to get the right answer about something in reality and it still not have been done scientifically. It could be just luck. You guessed. and you got the right answer. You were accurate. But if you didn't use empirical methodologies and scientific practices, then you didn't use science to get that answer. That answer was not gotten to by applying science. It was either luck or whatever else, whatever other process it may be. So that's something that needs to be looked at, is that, sure, we could grant that the Quran got it right with respect to washing your hands and, health and everything like that, but it still doesn't make it science, because they didn't apply scientific methodology in arriving at that answer. Like I was mentioning earlier, it could easily be arrived at via mere by recognizing mere causative relations.
I sent you a DM in Discord, Mark. If you,
sorry,
there's a problematic person in your chat. Anyways, just saying.
Oh, really? What? What? I have not been keeping an eye on my chat, which is
they're not saying anything right now. It was during my stream. Anyways, it's
okay. Well, they're welcome as long as they're, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I sent to you what they said, but just so you're aware.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Ozzy, and something I think is a common thread here is that Nadir seems to own the meaning of words. So maybe Issa and I get more mad when he gets to own the interpretation, the religious interpretation. We're like mad that he gets to have, this is how it's interpreted, this is how it's understood. I'm right, you're all wrong, and that irks me, and it seems to irk Issa a little bit more. I'm less irked by the science definition. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even sure I'm a good one to even, give any of these definitions. But what are the people that are irked by it still irked by? He seems to think he owns the definition of words. This is how it's defined. This is what it means. And I'm right and you're wrong. He defines all the words in the way he wants to. And then when you lay all that out, guess what? He's right. And so I just noticed a common thread there, that he seems to kind of define things the way he wants to. Maybe mid-debate he'll even change it if there's a contradiction. And I just noticed that as a common thread. At least I felt it was one.
Sure. So I guess, what did we think? Is there a good argument for the Quran? Like the Quran in general, I've heard better arguments for the Quran, right? Like it's perfect. It's been perfectly preserved. There's no other literary work that's written better. No one could duplicate a passage within the Quran, and they'll do some type of cosmological argument to affirm that Allah exists.
I mean, pretty much any argument would be better than the Quran being scientific. If anything, it doesn't help the Quran at all. Like it's so against everything the Quran wants to be, to say anything in it is scientifically accurate. You should just abandon that. Nadir needs to abandon that argument, especially now since we've seen it so many times. And no, I don't think it's any argument would be better. Anything.
I would say maybe if he tried to argue, is the Quran historic, that would be better than scientific.
The Quran historic, like the historical claims in the Quran?
Yeah, like anything he might be able to relate to something that's, there might be other evidence for somewhere else.
Yeah, I think there is one major claim. I don't know. I hear background noise with somebody. I don't know who it is.
Just some kind of music.
It was coffee breath. Okay. That Muhammad predicted who was going to win the war between Rome and Empire and Persia within like a month, or like a very specific time frame. But then again, this is a war that had been going on off and on, back and forth for a couple hundred years prior to this. And to me, it's like calling a football game. It's like somebody's going to call the right one. They're going to, like the Kansas, whoever was playing football the other day, and somebody won and somebody got mad. That's all I know.
Flipping a coin.
Yeah. It's not exactly
So-
like flipping a coin. You can do analysis by the two people. So
I think Nadir should just change his debate to, is the Quran more scientifically accurate than the Bible? Because that's
Yeah.
his debate. Just own that and have that debate.
Yeah. But he's got to
I've
stop saying
never-
that atheists won't step up to debate him as well, because they do. And then he's sort of like, oh, well, big names won't step. And it's like, dude, come on. Like, you're getting.
Are you
people-
looking forward to Nadir's next debate when he claims he left your body limp on the floor of modern day debate?
Oh,
Like, are you-
absolutely. I can't wait. I think that'll be hilarious. So here's the thing. Like, Nadir always takes to the comments. He always tries to convince everybody that he won. If you do well in a debate, you don't have to go around telling people about it and describing how well you did. You just go, okay, well, my debate stands on its own merits, and that's it. I did my best, and my arguments will stand on their own merits. But Nadir can't do that. Yes, go and chase people and say, I
think that's important too. It's very bizarre. The particularly even just thinking about the tactic of attacking things like the Bible in this position. It's not good for a Muslim to do that, because if you attack the Bible, then you attack the Quran. And I don't understand Muslim apologists doing this. It hurts that internal continuity in Islamic belief. You have to believe in the books. You have to believe in the Injil, and you have to believe in the Torah. So if you reject the Injil, you could try to do a reinterpretation and say, hey, it's mystical, I don't understand it, about the crucifixion and stuff. You can do tactics like that. But if you outright reject these texts, then you face a huge internal crisis that I don't think these folks even understand personally. So I also think it's weird, the whole this attack, this situation of the situation that you brought up, Mark, about like with the atheists, and then he said some ridiculous thing about you go to the atheist wacky quacky school of ridiculousness, and I'm like, Lord have mercy, this is ridiculous. You were right. It's a Saturday cartoon.
Well, that but the thing is, I don't get upset about that, because that's good for me. If you wanna like puff your chest and beat your chest, it doesn't actually make you look stronger. It makes you look weaker. So that entire tactic of debate bro, oh, I'm slapping you down. People can tell that you're just compensating for your bad arguments. I trust people can tell that. So I go ahead, do it. It doesn't. All you're doing is hurting your own debate arguments. It doesn't worry me.
How is it that once again the two bald guys with like almost identical headsets have ended up next to each other? Ozian, what are you doing? Huh?
I just like being near Dr. J.
Hey.
I just like being near Dr. J.
I grew up my facial hair on vacation just to try to like have a little difference. Come on, I'm working on it over here.
Don't I count for anything?
Yeah, but you
There's
got
three of
facial
us.
hair. And glasses, and the other two don't. If they wear glasses, they don't have them on.
I think
It's
Billy
like
and I
a,
have enough to share.
It's like a 3-stage picture of growing beard. Like none, a little bit, and then a lot.
And then apparently black guy.
Yeah,
or I should say brown guy.
Everyone eventually turns into a black guy, don't you know, Leo? That's eventually what.
And then all black guys turn into crabs. Crabs is the end stage. We'll all become
crabs. Yes,
crab people. I really want to debate Nadir on Islam versus atheism. I think that would be really fun. Let's see if he actually has any arguments against it, because I'm sure he doesn't. And it also gives me an excuse to kind of just beat him with the problem of evil for like an hour and a half, which would be a lot of fun.
He will do the same argument. He'll do the same stupid scientific argument. He won't.
He doesn't know how to. He doesn't know how to respond to the argument from evil. I don't even have to try to look for him talking about. I know he couldn't.
The best thing Nadir would do, and the most shocking thing Nadir could do, would be to show up to another debate and come with a totally new set of websites and PowerPoints to show us. Like,
well, I'd be debating him on a completely different topic. I'm not debating him on this topic.
Can I share my screen just because I feel like we haven't shared a screen in a while, and it's just for fun.
Hugh Hammond said
so-
that Nadir should debate Howard.
George
art
Howard
rock.
Stirrup.
Oh,
Howard
that would be
Stewart.
great.
So
That would be
I'm pretty
hilarious.
good with the snippet tool. If you guys didn't know, I mean, Ozian knows I'm pretty good with that snippet tool. And during the debate, I was sending Mark little pictures of himself. Yeah, so the first one is when Mark Reed smells blood in the water. This was pretty much really early in the debate, and a little bit later on in the debate, the bottom one, that's when the shark has had enough to eat and couldn't possibly have another bite. I don't know. That first one with the smile was so good because Nadir just kept coming back to Mark with like, "Yep, again, Mark didn't say anything of importance." It's like, no, he had nothing but meat and potatoes on that plate. He just served you, and you're just gonna ignore it? Like, no, I don't think so.
I want to know why Nadir's running away, and he's not here right now. He knows this is happening, and he's running away. He's
It's the
terrified
same reason
of us.
why they didn't get to read all the super chats or whatever. Nadir was on a clock today.
Yeah. So look, I get that we're just sort of roasting Nadir because he's kind of, he says, "Oh, all the atheists run away." But I really don't get into the debate bro stuff of, "Oh, you didn't come into the after show, so you're clearly a friend." Come on, people have lives and stuff.
Aren't you the one that challenged him to the debate on this, Mark?
Well, yes, but that's only because he said that.
Oh, but the atheists are running. They're all running, scared, like pansies.
One thing I wanted to bring up is the reason Christians don't debate this is because I've never seen a Christian make the claim that the Bible is scientific. Only the most hardcore, like really crazy people say that. And those people are wrong.
Well, I've addressed this before, like I have, but not your hardcore apologetics, not the people that actually go to debate. It's usually, people like P-Town and stuff like that that'll say, so the people that are debating aren't saying it, which should give the people who say it a clue that it's not a good argument. But
why aren't they saying it? Because they know it's a failed argument from the start. The Bible is a spiritual guide, whatever. On that sense, it's not a scientific book.
And I will say to the Muslims, like, it doesn't make, like, just because something's not scientific, it doesn't mean it's not an important book. It's important culturally. It's important in a historical context. It's important, obviously, spiritually to you. Nobody's denying it's important. It's that it's not scientific, and that's okay. Some of my favorite books aren't scientific. I love Lord of the Rings. It's not a science book. Sorry.
Yeah, the Christians are all too busy debating whether or not the Gospels are historically reliable, which they're not.
Would a Kent Hovind Nadir debate be worthwhile to see?
No, we still need to do the Kent Hovind Nathan Thompson debate on the flat Earth. Yeah,
on the flat Earth, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The only time
Kent Hovind and Whitsitt. Oh my God!
Latter Day Saint and Matt Dillahunty.
Well, Matt Dillahunty would just rage quit in like 15 minutes. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, Matt's not rolling in the mud with anybody anymore. He's aiming elsewhere. No, I mean, everyone's been comparing Nadir to the Islamic Kent Hovind, and I totally see it. I totally see it because they both have the exact same recyclable arguments. We could do a mock debate between Kent Hovind and Nadir ourselves. We know their arguments so well at this point. Like, we could get Mark to put on his fancy shirt, get someone else to like put on their Nadir hat, and whatever it takes. Fancy.
Yeah, probably. I could do Kent Hovind. I know his spiel.
Hey, I'll play Nadir Ahmed. I'll have a great time.
But it would probably ultimately end up just being two people talking past each other, right?
Would it be entertaining? Let me debate this guy, because it would be entertaining. It would be fun.
Yeah.
I'm a character actor, so I would play Nadir easily. It's an easy role to play.
Yeah, I hate looking at it.
In Time Magazine, do you know that the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the most influential person? Okay, so that proves to us that the Quran is true. Okay, that proves to us that it's scientific. And I want to tell you about the vas deferens. It's right next to the rib. See, the Quran is right. All the atheists are false. All the atheists are fake. They don't know what they're talking about. The Quran is right, and the Hadith are right. Okay.
Don't forget the floor of the modern day debate is littered with the bodies of atheists who attempted.
It is. We
Oh,
fail
yeah.
all the time.
I have defeated them
There's
all.
like
defeated them all.
6 Leophiliuses on the floor. I've heard.
I was gonna say I would like to hear Dr. J's opinion on the whole argument of whether Christianity or the Bible is scientific. Just
It sort of
real quick.
it sort of depends on who you ask. So most people
We're
would
asking you.
I would say that the Bible's not really a science book or trying to convey scientific stuff. So it's written in its time. So there was really no attempt to try to convey scientific things. So I wouldn't argue that you should try to demonstrate that it was providing with the scientific stuff. Some people have argued that some of the eating laws in the Old Testament are healthy or whatever, but I mean, I'm like, yeah, but I'm sure some of them weren't. So I doubt that was the point of them.
It might have been healthy at that time because, fish and pork. I worked at McDonald's, and when they train you, they tell you that those are the most not secure foods. So you can't even leave fish 5 minutes out and break the cold chain because it starts going bad really fast. So the way I see it is that those things come from those kinds of observations that that pork goes bad really fast, and pork if it's not treated well, if it's not well cooked and stuff, it can contain parasites and diseases and blah blah blah. So I think those kinds of restrictions come from observations in the natural world, which are very fair, and we all know about those. I mean, cow meat goes bad, takes longer to go bad in comparison to pork meat. I don't know why, but it just does.
Cow meat also tastes better than pig meat. This is not debatable. Beef is better than beef. No, it's not.
Pork
Shut
is
up.
better.
Nope.
Ham is better.
Nope. Nope. It's not.
Unless it's a good ribeye cut, then
you ever had a butcher steak, a hanger steak?
A good ribeye cut's fine. But
have you ever had curated ham?
Is a hanger worse than ribeye?
A hanger steak, it's better, much better.
Well, then there you go. A good ribeye or something
because
like
beef
that
is better
good.
than pork. Now I like my pork. I'm from Iowa. Okay, ain't nothing but pigs and corn around here. But beef.
Somebody said objectively
venison.
wrong about beef and pork. That's not true.
That's crazy, man.
Bacon. Have you ever had elk meat? Yeah, I didn't like it. But that was a long time ago.
Ever had like it? Serrano ham?
I was a little kid. I didn't like anything except beef and pork and chicken. So
there's a Serrano ham they make in Spain, and they feed the pigs with I think it's apricots or something like that. It's one of the most expensive meats in the world. And I mean, curated ham, it's really good, but all of this is personal taste.
I'm just fucking with people.
Why am I taking you seriously?
If you guys are liking the after show, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button, or even become a member so you can hit that derailed icon the next time we start randomly talking about pork in Iowa.
You ever had Iowa chops? I bet not. You know pork, but you don't know pork. Come to Iowa. We'll show you a thing or two. Also, duck is so much better than chicken.
Your answer there. I wasn't trying to like put you on the spot or anything or come at you, but it was really interesting because I know Nadir was coming from the same, not the same venue, but having a very faithful belief in something, but he approaches it in a different way, trying to debate that something is scientific, and I totally expected you not to take that approach, but you still have the same, maybe the same amount of faith in what you do believe, even though it's a separate avenue. So I wasn't trying to shoot shots. I was just like, that's super interesting because you can have both sides even on the same platform.
I'm sure Nadir would say I'm misunderstanding faith because I'm not getting it quite right.
Really quick, I got a super chat, Canadian $2 from Taking Back Eden. Flat Earth. Surah
Lord.
Taha 53, International Telephone of the Bible.
What?
Thank you, Taking Back
I can-
Eden. Eden.
What is
I don't
that? Surah?
understand. Does anyone understand that?
Surah 53?
I think he might be
No, it's Surah
referring
Taha.
to the period where the Quran was only transmitted through oral tradition.
Oh.
But that's exactly the same in the Bible.
No, this is a flat Earth argument.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This is where they spread out or made the Earth as a bed spread out and inserted therein for your roadways and sent down from the sky rain and produced thereby categories of various plants. This is an argument that flat earthers use that say the Quran supports the flat Earth model. Anyways, it's not flat Earth debate. Take it back, Eden.
One thing I'd always like to ask religious people that are flat earthers, and usually I don't speak much in those after shows or whatever, but I just wonder, like, if you found out that you were wrong, would you lose your faith? Like, are you hanging your faith on the shape of the Earth? I'd really be interested to know what they think about that and if they've thought about that deeply.
I think some of them do. I'm not sure. But some people have come out of being flat earthers. I don't think they lost their religious beliefs because of that. And Take It Back Eden was also saying it was a telephone game, so whatever. But yeah, I do think a lot of them, though, it is a religious belief. And I watched that Level With Me video or movie, whatever you want to call it, that the flat earthers made Wits in. And they believe all types of strange stuff. Like there's aliens in a hollow earth, aliens in, they think outer lands, this is upper space that doesn't exist versus outer lands. They believe like there's a vibration you have to close your eyes to sense to know the truth about reality. Like it's bizarre. So I don't think they would.
How many of I didn't know that flat earthers like to do a shit pile of acid.
What?
I said I didn't know that flat earthers like to do shit piles of acid. Did you
And
not
where does
just
that
hear
come
everything?
from?
Did you
No,
not
I
hear
heard
everything
it.
Ozian just said? You're telling me that that's not I went on an acid trip to these magical
they
lands
said-
with aliens and I think it's real?
They said you feel this. You feel this. You feel this, but you got to close your eyes to feel the vibrations.
Yeah, that's
Like-
acid trip type stuff.
It's not just flat earthers. The amount of times I've heard somebody religious say, "Hey, I had this dream and it showed me the revelation kind of thing and all these things happening because I had this dream." It's like, yeah, I mean, I had a dream of all kinds of stuff. You know, I had a dream where I was an astronaut fighting aliens. It doesn't mean that that's actually going to happen. Like, so it may have just been, you know, a dream vision kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, even Martin Luther King had a dream, and apparently it stayed that way. It's a little fucked up, but anyway.
I
So
have a point from a Muslim really quick. Samir Farsain. We might actually have room for you to come up on stage, Samir, but it'd be better if you had a camera. But the Quran is signed like the scientific, not scientific, because the point is to believe and not to know. Can you deny that the signs in the Quran are something to reflect upon? Like, is there lessons to learn with the Quran, I guess? I don't know. Or is there evidence that justifies the belief? I don't think so.
I don't think anybody had that problem. The problem is does it fit into scientific methodology and theory? It doesn't matter if you look at the ayah and you see the signs. That's not the problem. The question is, does this align? If you open the Quran, is it a scientific textbook? That's the argument. That's the question. That is what the whole debate is about. And I think Mark and Brad proved the case that it's not. It is not that case. And I think it hurts the case when you try to do that.
Iron Charioteer asked you, Issa, why you were still a Muslim.
Well, the point is, I think religion is complex. It's nuanced. If you watched my debates, you'll see that I see religion as being polyolithic. I see it as being pluralistic, and that's the way that I kind of view it. I think people assume that religion fits into a box, and that's why I actually became a debater. Is because I was tired of seeing Islam being viewed as really, to be honest, just a religion of barbarism. It exhausted me. I'm like, I'm tired of this, and that's why I decided to do it.
Yeah,
sounds like almost my journey into YouTube, except with science instead of Islam.
Yeah, I hate this debate. I'd rather just do a typical, like a cosmological debate and stuff like that. Do you guys like any of the atheists like doing theology debates, like arguing the
Yes.
Bible or
No.
you do?
I love
It's
it.
boring. I don't mind it, like if a debate on did Jesus resurrect from the dead, because all I have to do is just run an argument against miracles, and that's not that hard to do at all. But other than that, I don't give a fuck what the Bible says. It's boring to me. I don't care.
Well,
I don't care if the Bible endorsed slavery. I'm not going to. I don't care. I don't care. It's not relevant to whether or not God exists, and that's the question that's being debated. That's what I'm focused on.
Leo, you take a breath. Let's people. You take.
I'm sorry. I'll mute. It's the odd.
I don't mind religious debates kind of thing. If you're talking like, like Leo said, did God exist? Is there a God? That I'm fine with that. I'm really good with that, which is kind of philosophical as well. So if you're talking about philosophical kind of religious debates, if you're talking about sort of meta-analysis of the text, like, is the Trinity true kind of thing? Yeah, that bores me.
Theology.
That's like people going, is Superman or Goku the strongest? I don't, I'm not. I don't have a dog in the race. So
number two right here.
I like the debates, and I like to go into like the specifics of the theology and try to poke out holes there. I find that very fun and entertaining.
But how can you poke holes? Like, if they don't have any internal contradictions within their own theology because of how they interpret it, like Nadir did tonight. Nadir is removed all internal contradictions within the Quran because he has specifically said these are miracles, God can do whatever. These all accept as scientific fact unless the science change, then they're miracles. So there's no like, what do you do? It's like a pointless debate.
It's about consistency, right? Like you try to come up with a consistent way you do it. So in order to argue with if Muslim argue with Nadir argue with another Muslim, you need to talk about internal consistency, and you have to both be agreeing that you're consistently interpreting the same way, which I could totally understand how atheists think that is super boring and a waste of their time. I'm not suggesting that atheists should think it's interesting, but maybe Issa could comment too. But you're trying to say, are you consistently interpreting the same way? So like you say, well, do I consistently interpret poetry this way? Yes. Okay, so this is poetic. But anyway, you got to have some kind of consistency or reason why you might be interpreting things a different way, which I can see why most of you think that's boring, but I think that's usually what you're trying to do.
Nothing turns on that, and for me, that's what makes the discussion boring. Is there's always an excuse, there's always an explanation, there's always some way out for the Christian. I don't really have much experience with Muslims when it comes to talking the theology, and it gets boring because you end up so far from whether or not God even exists, which again I think is like the central question that's being discussed, that God's existence no longer turns on that particular discussion. You run an argument from hiddenness or an argument from evil. I've watched these things silence Christians where they have nothing to say. God's existence turns on those discussions. God's existence strongly turns on those discussions, and that's why those discussions are more interesting to me.
I disagree with you a lot.
I will never be convinced by a theological argument. Like Nadir's arguments could never convince me to believe in a God.
Can I just interject something real quick? I think Robin Webster got a membership with Matters Now and managed to hit me directly with it.
Yeah, you missed that? She called it a bullseye.
I didn't say that. That's insane. She has such good aim with those things. I'm beginning to think that Robin Webster is actually Google. I'm beginning to believe. I'm beginning to believe. No, thanks, Robin. I want to give you a big shout out. I didn't notice. I was kind of trying to look at my chat and your chat, and this is getting very complicated. Like seriously, I'm not even joking. It's getting.
There's 84 people between the two channels, and it's weird because her gift membership came up on this chat on StreamYards, not on the stinking YouTube chat. I accidentally disconnected the YouTube chat for Matters Now from StreamYards, so I don't know what's going on. But,
okay.
But Iron Chair Deterred asked a question for Issa. Do you think that saltwater and freshwater can mix, or is the Quran verse more about the ionic barrier between different salinities and waters? So like the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean don't mix. They're asking Issa.
Yes,
So-
after Issa, can I go?
Yeah.
I think that when we're looking at the text, like I agree with Dr. J, and I would agree with probably most any like solid academic theologians. The way that this is looking at is the spiritual guide is looking at what is around them. And it's very funny because Nadir in one breath will tell us, hey, look at Jesus. He's completely off the mark with the mustard seed. I'm holding, man, I wanted to talk to him about that. I think it was so nutty that he kept bringing that up. And then you have this type of thing where it's like there's tons of things that you can find in Islamic tradition and within the Quran and within the Hadith that showcase the same kind of things that aren't exactly aligned with what we understand in modern day science, but they're trying to relay a spiritual narrative. And I think that that's the idea, that with most of these things, it's not science that's being conveyed. It's using naturalistic elements to convey a spiritual narrative. So that's the way I would view most of these things. And I think that's how we should engage it, as opposed to trying to, give it like a religious wallpapering.
So you don't accept it as true. Go ahead, Max. Sorry.
No, going to the whole waters not mixing things. I live in Uruguay, so the Rio de la Plata meets the Atlantic Ocean, and those are very different waters. So you will sometimes have the blue water on the right, for example, or if you're looking from the coast, the left actually, and you will have the brown river water there, and a fault line is created. The Quran says that those waters don't mix, but on that line and below the waters, there's a constant exchange of water that they're mixing all the time, because that's what water does. If you put cold water and hot water together, you get warm water. If you put saturated with salt water and water without salt, you will get less concentration of salt. That's just what water does. It looks like it doesn't mix, but it's actually really mixing all the time. And there's nothing you can say to make that verse fit the narrative that you want, unless you hand wave everything away.
Somebody said it looked like Penn Teller, so it's like, what?
That's a compliment.
Does that make me Teller?
Well, Teller never talks.
Oh, so it's Billy Bomb.
Yeah. I haven't said anything the whole time, I guess. Yeah.
Do you think the Quran got any scientific facts from Galen or Pliny the Elder?
Probably, yeah. I think so. I think Muhammad talked to scribes and talked to people who are knowledgeable. I don't see why he wouldn't. He seemed to like knowledge. And, nobody's sort of saying, hey, he didn't have knowledge about the world. Just, whether it's scientifically acquired. And there's some knowledge in there which definitely not was scientifically required, nor was it accurate. So, but yeah, if he got some information from scribes and other scholars and people who had studied the natural world, I mean, this is the thing, like, science was done back in the age of Aristotle and Euthyphro and Eratosthenes and all of these great things. It's been done for ages. It's not like it's, well, if you're not today, then you're not doing science. No, it's just it has to be empirical and verifiable.
Didn't they have a word for this science, sort of science based off Aristotelian conceptions?
Like wacky, I think is the word you're looking for. I think it's wacky quacky. That's what you're looking for right now.
No, they had a specific word for how you. It's sort of like deductive arguments for how you can gain knowledge. Before, like, we developed the scientific method, I thought it was
natural philosophy,
dialectic.
Nah, it's okay.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
I can't find the word anymore. Anyways, doesn't matter.
I mean, originally scientists were natural philosophers. That's what they used to call themselves, is natural philosophers.
Yeah.
That's essentially what they
That's
were.
what
like
Einstein's, Newton's, the Principia is the Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, the mathematical principles of natural philosophy.
And all the geologists, they weren't known as they were natural philosophers, and that was the start of biology as well, where people used to investigate the Darwin was not, like, they'll say, hey, Darwin wasn't, some kind of scientist. Well, kind of, he was a natural philosopher. Yeah. That's what he was. So
they were following the methods as laid out by Francis Bacon, and he's the one that is credited generally with having laid out or really standardized the what we call the scientific method, the 6 steps of the scientific method. And Bacon was before Darwin. He was not before.
You're making me hungry.
I just want to say really quickly that during the debate, Max was moderating me in the chat, and I think you were right to do so. No, I think you're fine. I was like, I am being a little bit rough inside.
You were a little bit, yeah.
Yep,
but,
you're right.
I mean, in general, when we bring that up to people, hey, attack the arguments, not the people, don't insult. I had to time out one person, which was being like really hateful. And I gave him a couple of warnings, and he said, when I gave him the final one, he said, do you want your family to be cursed? And it's like, okay, you need to chill out.
Yeah. No, I think you got me on right there.
I understand that sometimes things get heated, but I mean, we try to. It's hard for me also because I can't even discuss the debate in the chat. I just need to stick to moderating. And sometimes I'm going like, I want to say something, but I hold on. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. It's not personal. We just try to keep things civil, because if one side starts insulting, then we can't. The other side will also get their chance to insult. So
yeah,
okay. I know. I knew it was you. I just needed to bring it to your attention, and you would realize, because you're a cool dude.
No, you're good. You're good. I was like, what the heck? I'm just saying what I think he's going to say. And then he goes and says exactly what I said I think he's going to say. But then I look back at some of the stuff that I wrote before that. I'm like, okay, yeah, that might have been on a line. So you were right.
I think, Coffee, you should give us a sneak peek of what you've been working on this whole time. What are you, an hour in?
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
Dude, it's so good. Look at that. Oh my God.
Ooh.
Holy cow.
That's the photo.
It doesn't look nothing like me.
$300. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. You'd be one of my... It's a hobby. It's a hobby.
I do have a really important question, a little organizational question here. Billy, do you have hair under that hat?
It's like balding. It's like balding. That's why I wear the hat.
Oh, because I was going to say, if you don't, you need to take the hat off, and then Jamie needs to move down to where I am so we can have a nice shiny bottom row.
Bald.
I have a whole lot of hair on my head.
Yeah.
I can only see your forehead because of your your headphones.
No, Jamie's fine. We need Max down here, but he's obviously a host.
That is
I honest to God feel like if Brad and Dr. Jake took the nameplates away, I'd have to look 2 or 3 times just to be absolutely
probably. I mean, he's a
double
good-looking guy. What can I
It's the
say?
headset, though, isn't it?
It's
Their headsets match. They're both big.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've seen a couple questions and comments in both streams about the moderation for modern day debate. Maybe what the panel thinks about it, like if it's any of the mods over moderate, under moderate. It doesn't seem like you're ever going to make everybody happy anyways. Like, I don't know what people's opinions are. If you guys want to
I have an
about
opinion
that.
on that. I have an opinion on it. If
Go, Mark.
both sides are angry at you for the moderation, you're doing fantastic.
Or you're doing shit, but who knows which one it is.
No, because then you're doing shit equally for both of them, and then it's fair.
Or your moderation actually is just shit, and that's why both of them are recognizing. I mean, that's a possibility.
It is a possibility, but usually if you're trying to be as fair as possible and one side saying you're biased towards the other and the other side saying you're biased towards the other, then usually you're doing a really good neutral job because, you know, they both think you're being biased towards the other. Yeah, I suppose I did put a bit of absolute into that statement. Thanks for nitpicking there, Leo. I always love it.
Oh, you know me.
You know, my body was already on the floor and slaughtered from Nadir, and you just, you know, peed on my corpse. So thanks for that.
Today, there was someone very, very upset that their $5 super chat wasn't read, and it was about the camel urine thing.
Oh yeah.
And he was very upset. He was calling Ryan a scammer, and that I don't think that's fair.
I actually snipped that super chat and I have it here. The second he was upset.
I will say really quickly that super chat does have a little bit of basis in like a legitimate argument, because if you're talking about the scientific accuracy of the Quran, one of the things that's said is that all water is pure. It can't be made impure, and that even camel urine can be used for cleanly purposes, and that's scientifically dubious. So it has a hint, but it's not in the Quran, so it doesn't matter.
It's not in the Quran, it's in a hadith. So it is fair to say. And I get why Ryan is like, oh, this could go into nightmare territory kind of thing. So what you've got to understand is that if you have someone on saying, no, in actual fact, it is fine to drink this urine, you're then into the realms of medical misinformation. And that's a problem, right? That's a real problem. That's something that no channel wants to poke a 10-foot barge pole at. So you have to be very careful about what the guests on your show are actually giving as medical advice, as scientific advice, you know, to people that could be harmful. So that's always going to be a problem. It's always going to be in the top of your sort of things you don't allow in your channel. Now, they might err on the side of caution, 100%. That's just the name of the game. I'm really sorry, but that is it. And it was not in the Quran. It was in the Hadith. So it didn't really factor into the debate. But I think that Ryan made a good call. He erred on the side of caution. I think it was a good call.
Well, he gets the hand washing from the Hadiths. So his arguments, he said in the debate I had with him, he pulls from the Quran and the Hadith. So to me, the Hadiths are fair game in the debate.
Look, he pulled from the Hadith once during our debate. I noticed it. I didn't want to get bogged down in, are we talking about the Quran or the Hadith? I had more than enough ammunition. I didn't want to go there because then it would just be like, you know, him saying, oh, but we're not talking, and, you know, get into that. Why bother with that argument? If you've got enough ammo, you've got enough ammo. Don't even bother arguing Hadith versus Quran.
Pick and choose
Just
your
go straight
battles.
to the Quran. Right.
Yeah.
You're spending time on something that doesn't need to be argued.
Well, that's, I wouldn't worry about it. But to me, it's like that's their whole theology includes the Quran Hadith. To him, it's the same. So it's the religion. So that's the point I'm trying to make. To try to say, he can't bring up the Hadith. I think you shouldn't argue against that. That's the point I'm making. So it depends on the person, because we had a Quranic on a couple weeks ago. He doesn't follow any Hadiths, but then Muslims will say he's not a true Muslim. So,
yeah, just like Catholics are heretics because they worship Mary. Dumbest fucking shit I've ever heard in my life.
What's the no true Scotsman fallacy? And I've heard people say that they're like, you are not true Muslim. And I'm like, okay, so what's a true Muslim? You're the true Muslim? anybody's going to say they're the true thing. They're the true Christian. They're the true Jew. It's ridiculous and it's fallacious. It's bad argumentation. And the thing is, someone's going to say that you're fake. You know what I mean? Someone's going to say, hey, yeah, exactly. Everybody's going to say someone's going to say you're not real. You're not authentic. And I'm like, okay, you want to make that argument? Well, you're gonna fail at some point too. Do you think that the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah or the Sunnis are not critiqued by the Shia, and vice versa? So who's right? Well, you could argue they're both right in their own minds. That's how it is.
I am the only true Christian, though.
Well, I don't think any deity is settling the issue anytime soon. I mean, obviously, you find out if you're right after you die, according to them. But I don't think. Well, I don't think we're going to find. Nobody's going to come down and say, "Well, actually, it's the Seventh Day Adventists over here that are actually the right ones." So, I think that to an outsider, or anybody that says they believe in that Jesus is a God, just automatically is a Christian. And so to sort of be told, hey, but they're not the real Christians. Look, I don't know, because they're saying you're not, and you're saying they're not. I don't, I have no way to evaluate your claim that they're the wrong ones and you're the right ones. Same with Muslims. I've got no way to validate who is in the right and who is in the wrong. So we just use these labels, and you could be right, you're the right ones. I've just got no way to validate that.
Anyone here ever seen a show called The Good Place?
Yes, that's a great show. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Loved that. There was so much philosophy.
Who got the religion right? I was like, Steve. One time he was high. He got it right. He's the only person.
Got like 90%.
But Mark, to address the point that you brought up, I think it's an interesting question. You're like, well, how do you prove what's right? You know what you can prove it's right? How do you treat your fellow person? That's what's right. I could care less what your dogma is. I think if people spout their dogma and they go and say, I'm correct and I'm true, but then they treat people like crap and they're arrogant and they're rude and they're nasty, I could care less what they believe. You know what I mean? If they treat people regardless of whatever other religion in a good and decent way, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So we've sort of. I get what you're saying, Isa. I get what you're saying. That hey, no, it kind of like know them like the fruits in their Christianity kind of thing. But you can still have two people that are doing good things that believe in contradictory things. So what I'm saying is that one of them will be correct ontologically, like about the reality of what it is, kind of thing. Like, so either God or Allah does do this or does not do this, and they have a difference in opinion. One will be correct about that, or they're both wrong.
They're humans. Like, that's beyond every human's pay grade. How do you know what God knows or doesn't know? You can only do what you say. Hey, and I agree with you. I think it's just ridiculous to say, hey, this is my faith. This is important for me. Like, I'll go to Quranic study. I'll go to Bible study. This helps me be a better human being in my own life, and it's valuable and good for me. I think that's great. When you try to speak claims that are way beyond your pay grade, it sounds ridiculous where you're trying to come out and say, I know this for sure. You can know it for yourself. That's all you can know. You can't say you know
even the Muslim. The problem is even the Muslim that says, "Hey, you disagree with that their life's horrible and they want to kill everybody or something like that, right?" Even the Muslim that's sort of hardcore radical evil that we would see, both of us see as evil. We don't know for sure that isn't what Allah wants, because we have no way to test who's the real Muslim. So you can't say, "Oh, well, that person's not a Muslim," because they believe in the Quran, they believe in Allah, they follow, they meet the criterion of that religion. And we have, from the outside, have no way to tell who is the real Muslim or the real Christian or the real Buddhist or the real Hindu. So what, Isa. So we have to just say, hey, all of those people are Muslims because they fit the criteria of being a Muslim. That's it. We've got no way to tell who is true Muslim or not. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I agree with you. We're already in agreement, because my position, like through an academic way, is that if someone self-identifies as something, then that's what they are. That you leave it at that. You can't. You can't go deeper than that. You could say, hey, whatever their practices are, I don't agree with it. Fine, but I 100% agree, and that's the point that I'm making. I'm saying if a person's trying to say, well, I'm right and I'm true, I'm like, well, someone else thinks you're not. So it's like, And most of the time, you know why people believe what they believe? Mommy and daddy taught them that way. That's it. Sorry, that's the truth. You know. I'm
really
sorry.
quick. I need to go to bed. But so matters now. I'll leave the channel open if you go on to keep streaming, Mark and Issa. But I'm going to say goodbye. But I just want to do some really quick show notes. So I just want to thank everybody for coming to the panel. Thank you very much, Mark, for giving that entertaining debate. I would thank Nadir too. If he was here, I appreciated our conversation also. I'm not going to do a really long goodbye for this time before I shut it down. But people, there's been a scrolling thing going on nonstop. Tomorrow, I think there's a Jay Dyer debate on the Trinity versus the Tawhid, which is like unity sort of. Yeah. Sort of like the Islam conception of God versus the Christian conception of God. Tawhid. Thank you.
Yeah. I wonder how that's going to go out. Jay Dyer and Jake.
It says it's written in blood. We'll see if it's even happens. I think it's been posted for 8 months up there on Modern Day Debate. So it's versus a Muslim metaphysician, I think it is.
Yeah.
The guy's
Jake
name.
Brankentella.
Metaphysician.
I'm a metaphysician. I got the thing right here. I have a PhD in metaphysics.
Okay.
Oh, man.
It only cost me $20 for the Universal Life Church. Anyways,
you got the Hoban treatment. Yeah, nice.
I'm going to close my stream out. I'll leave your guys' open. I want to do my little video really quick, though. So sorry. Oh, you guys don't even see it. Well, that's convenient. Okay, I ended the stream. Cool. That was easy. So if you didn't know, I'm like outputting. I'm doing a screen share to Streamlabs, and then I'm streaming that direct, so I can do all the animations and stuff like that. Anyways, but I want to go to bed, guys. I'll leave this open though.
No.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, someone's cutting out pretty bad.
I should have told people to go to Mark Reed's channel.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, we should have
set up a redirect because I'm redirecting to yours, and now yours is calling, so I've got to stop that.
Yeah, we keep failing on those redirects. We got to get on top of that properly.
I had a redirect set up, but it was set up to something I knew was happening at the time. But yeah,
all good. But yeah, I'm.
By the way, really quickly, does anybody in here know how you upload a YouTube short by clipping from like a longer video? How do you do that? I literally have no fucking clue how to do it.
No,
you got to what?
Recognize it. I would only recognize it as a YouTube short if it's in a mobile phone format. So you've got to.
Oh, so you got to upload it mobile.
Well, that's one way, or you can just change the video to a mobile phone format, so the resolution in mobile phones. So you can use probably any video editor to do that. You just change the format, and it'll just change it to whatever the format of a. I can't remember the format. Hang on, one sec. Yeah, 920 by 1080. So it's a 9:16 aspect ratio.
A 1080 by 1920.
No.
Yeah.
What the fuck is
no?
Happening?
A YouTube short has to be 1080 by 1920.
Create a short.
Okay.
Continue.
A YouTube short.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's 1080 by 1920.
And 59 seconds. Don't try to do 60 seconds. 59 seconds or less. Or it won't
Why?
Short.
On YouTube, short.
You'll be a video, and it'll be in
yeah, it's got a maximum of 1 minute, but usually if you do 60, it just is like 60 point something, so 59 point something is where you want it to have it.
Yeah.
Mark Reed doesn't have a derailed icon.
Oh, I do not, but I do have a tangent icon.
We can just do a tangent.
Yeah, I need to fix the icon. I did.
Let's change the headline to "How to Do YouTube."
All right.
Okay, fair call.
Like, we're still streaming. Just putting that out there. Like, yeah, Modders Now is shut down, but Mark Reed and
By the
I'm trying to help
way,
people. I'm trying to help.
did you guys see the accidental face reveal of Darth Dawkins as he attempted to navigate his way through TikTok?
Yeah.
I have not. Apparently,
show
Tom
it to
Rabbit
you.
got it on his channel.
Dark Dawkins had
Well-
a whole like never show his face thing.
Well, now
Yeah.
we're going to show it on this channel really quick.
You're right.
I'm
Because
not
it's
even that
public,
interested,
dude. It was
to be honest.
uploaded publicly to TikTok. He's the one that hit the camera button.
Why
You know
would
what?
he, why
Darth
is his
Dawkins
identity
doxes
so important to be
himself.
secret?
Look, Darth Dawkins doxes himself is
You
the
mean Gary
least
Milne?
unsurprising headline I have ever heard in my life. Like,
But doesn't
I
that
mean,
guy-
seriously.
Doesn't he look like a Gary? Because that's what his name is.
Yeah.
It looks
It's kind
like
of
a Gary.
it's kind of rough though because he does get death threats and stuff, so it's kind of not.
Well, he's
It's
sort
not.
of a
Yeah,
jerk.
but his people
Yeah,
also send
I'm
him
not saying he
people.
doesn't deserve them, but
No,
he doesn't. He doesn't deserve them. He doesn't deserve them.
And,
But
and
he
he
Oh, he
doxes
doesn't.
people as well. He doxes people. That's, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's right to dox him,
No,
but
right,
he's doxed
right.
himself and he also doxed other people. So I
He-
don't have that much sympathy for him.
He doesn't
There
look
you
that
go.
bad
That's
for
what you're saying.
60-something years old. Like, I wouldn't be ashamed of...
Yeah, I'm not saying he's unattractive. I'm just saying here's what he looks like. We can.
Oh,
out the
Samir's
face.
here as I'm leaving. I'll leave this. Well, let's see. I'll remove myself.
And bye.
Uh,
Bye, Felicia.
Hey,
Brad, one thing I did want to say is that regarding your earlier
Hi, everyone.
discussion.
Howdy.
Hey, Samir. Regarding your earlier discussion where you were saying that so-and-so aren't true Christians or true, I agree with what Issa was saying. If you identify as Christian, you are Christian. And I think that what you mean to be saying is that their beliefs are accurate or inaccurate. I mean, I'm a Christian. A lot of Christians tell me that I'm not. And I would say, yeah, my version of Christianity can be true or false, but I am a Christian regardless of whether or not my beliefs are true or false.
What kind of Christian are you? Are you a Catholic or are you a heretic?
I'm an agnostic.
You're what?
I
I'm
also-
sorry.
I'm an agnostic Christian.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I wanted to earlier interject on when we were talking about what kinds of debates in regards to Christianity we like to see the most. And I think the ones that, especially along the lines of what Dr. J was saying, I like the debates which come down to more so like a little bit based on theology, but also present in history. Like, is Christianity more beneficial for humanity than not? Those kinds of debates where it's like a challenge, like, okay, well, we have the Crusades that happened, but also there's evidence of people who have followed a religion and found a nice routine that benefited their lives, even if it's not just the beliefs, it's the practice they get out of that, or those are more engaging for me as far as the religious debates go, instead of just digging straight into like, is it true, is God real, like trying to prove science versus religion and stuff like that.
So do you mean like what's better for society kind of thing? Those kind of things? Like,
Yeah, not necessarily like what's better, but
okay.
is like X religion more positive or more negative for society? Those kinds of debates are really interesting because I feel like there's so much to flesh out there.
Yeah. I don't know. I do enjoy those, but I do really enjoy the onto sort of epistemology and what is actually true as well. I think that's good as well. But yeah, you're right. It certainly can bring up some interesting perspectives. Sure. Yeah. No.
I like debates on the arguments, like debates on the ontological argument, teleological arguments, contingency arguments, the Kalam cosmological argument, the moral argument, because these are what the pop apologists are throwing at the masses. They're throwing out these arguments, Frank Turek, William Lane Craig. You've got all these guys out here throwing out these arguments. And I think that since those are probably going to be what most people are familiar with, and those are like sort of the primary arsenal of the pop apologist, and then other adjacent figures that are in these online spaces, since that's their primary arsenal. Having a response to that primary arsenal is, I think, better, because then people are more willing to engage with that because of it being tangential to the primary arsenal of the pop apologists. You're hearing them give their arguments, but you're also hearing all of the popular responses to them, and even the unpopular responses, which are usually a little bit more philosophical, maybe take a little bit more to unravel, but do these arguments a lot of damage. Just to give an example, with the Kalam cosmological argument, I'm sure everybody knows it. Whatever begins to exist as a cause, the universe began to exist, or for the universe as cause. The minute you start talking about the metaphysics of time, this argument gets a lot weaker than it initially seems. The minute you start talking the metaphysics of causation, the same thing happens. So once you really start to break these arguments open, they're not nearly as strong or as powerful as they immediately seem to the lay people who don't understand a lot of the philosophy that sits behind them. That's why they're popular with the pop apologists, because they have that initial facade of strength and resilience and logical validity, but behind it all, there's a variety of objections that they don't outright bring these arguments down, certainly very, very much weaken them. And I think that that's good. That's good PR, given that those arguments are, again, the primary arsenal of the pop apologists.
Now, I think like a moral, a moral argument based on like the pop apologist point of view on these topics is the one that's most engaging. I guess initially what sort of my point was.
I also think the
people are
moral
like,
argument's the weakest.
It might be the weakest, but I think it's very interesting.
It is an interesting argument, yeah.
I really like the morals. I'm going to take over this show because that's what I'm like. Samir's new on the channel. When I give Samir a chance to comment on the debate, I think maybe sort of give your impressions and what you got out of it would be a good idea.
He's new on your channel. He's not new on Matters Now.
Oh,
okay.
I mean, he's new on the panel. Like, I didn't see him in here before, so...
Yeah, I was a little bit confused. I kind of clicked on the link from Matters Now, and then I realized I'm not in the Matters Now show, so...
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I mean, the reason I came up, I wasn't even going to try to come up because I saw there was already 10 people on the stage, so I just wanted to be a listener tonight and maybe participate with few chats here and there. But now that the chance presented itself, the comment that I had made earlier is that the Quran is scientific. The reason why we have to stop at scientific, because matter of fact, the verses in the Quran are called ayah in Arabic, and ayah means a sign, and God refers to the verses in the Quran that God says that we have given every sign in this Quran. So my question was, when you see these, because the ultimate goal for any religion, not only Islam, is to believe, not to know beyond any doubt, because then what is the reward for? If you were to know, what are you going to believe in if you know? If I tell you I have $1 million in the suitcase, I mean, what you're either going to believe me or not. But if I show it to you, you can't say I believe you. So this is the purpose of every religion, to just believe. So God, out of mercy, will give you signs, and then when you look at these signs, would you at least reflect upon these signs and say, well, hold on, this has some weight to it. I mean, even if you don't believe, you would say, okay, this has some weight to it. The Quran talk about the universe expanding 1400 years ago, when we gave a man a Nobel Prize in 1923 for discovering that the universe was expanding. The Quran talks about the difficulty or how much more of a challenge to recreate fingertips, which is meaning fingerprints of every human. Not only their bones, but we will reconstitute their fingertips. Talking about fingerprints. you would say, okay, there is a sign there. When you see that God referred in a verse about the war that he gave you, God refers to the war taking place in the lowest point of earth in a time where they had no way, even if they wanted to measure that area of the world by the Dead Sea is the lowest point on earth. And then now when we go figure out what is the lowest point on earth, we find out that that's the lowest point on earth, not even the Netherlands, which is called the Netherlands.
Wait, what?
So
no, the lowest point on earth is Tierra del Fuego in Argentina.
okay, Google is our friend. You want to Google it, Max?
I mean, what do you mean by lowest? Do you mean lowest in altitude? What do you mean?
In altitude compared to the sea level, yes.
My country is at 0 meters sea level, so you're just wrong.
All right, ask Uncle Google. I would like you to put me on the spot right now.
I don't need to. My country is literally at 0 meters sea level.
So it's gonna be my word against yours. We don't need to fact check it.
You can fact check. I don't need to fact check.
I did. That's why I'm so confident.
Okay, let's just put a pause on that. So where does the Quran say specifically is the lowest point on earth?
Okay. Thankfully, we have somebody here that speaks Arabic and he can translate. Isa, if you could please help me. When in the Quran, when it says غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ, what does adna mean?
So it's funny, you're putting me on the spot.
No, I'm not. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Adna.
So
adna is the opposite of a'la.
So ada is like it rises. So I guess it would be below. So you're saying this is the verse about the what is it called? The prophecy about that
the Romans, yes,
that beats the Persians, because the Persians were winning, and it was kind of this kind of powerful prophecy that the Romans would win. So yeah, it would be below.
Yeah. So my goal, guys, I don't want to drag this too long. My point is,
you've put out a whole lot of claims there, and we're trying to go through and sort of find out, because when you say a scientific, right? When you say, oh, well, it's not scientific, it's scientific, I can take you through how the scientific process works and the methodology behind it. So what I'm wondering is, what of the methodology of the scientific method that you speak of? What does it mean? Like, how do you check to see whether the information from the scientific method is actually reliable and hasn't been like, well, they said this was the lowest point. It turns out it's the area they lived in, so they just took the lowest point of where they lived in. It doesn't take a genius to go, well, they probably said that was the lowest point, and if it's the lowest point on Earth, that could be mere coincidence. They happen to live around the lowest point on Earth. Big deal.
Okay. It's funny. It's like the evidence broom. It says the lowest point on earth. Adna al-ard. Al-ard is earth. Okay. So my point here, I'm gonna try to reiterate. My point here is that 1400 years before any of the science or scientific method is a new thing. Scientific method is not. It's the thing could.
Method.
Okay.
You said it's the scientific. It's scientific. How does that work, and how do you use that to confirm that what you're saying is in fact true?
Okay. So when I say scientific, I mean the Quran will give you predictions, and then you will fact check those predictions based on the science that you have now, and you will find out that they match what is in front of us.
So the prediction that stars are lamps that are thrown at devils, how did that prediction come true?
Okay, that is not a prediction. That is a metaphor, because the Quran clearly uses the word stars tens of times throughout the book.
So that one's a metaphor, but the other one isn't a metaphor. How do you decide what's a metaphor and what's not a metaphor, Samir?
Okay, I'll answer you if you want to hear the answer. The Quran does use the word stars tens of times in tens of verses. Stars, 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 stars.
Also
Okay.
uses jinns too.
Okay, so the Quran talks about stars. So when the Quran talks about a verse, when it talks about stars being like lamps lighting the skies, it is a metaphor. When the Quran talks about sirajan wahaja, it is a metaphor. People knew back then, 1400 years ago, that it was a metaphor. They didn't think it was a lamp that had
Not
oil
answering
and
Mark's
somebody
question.
and somebody lit it.
You're not
When the
answering
Quran,
Mark's question. He asked you,
Amir, do you know
what's
what the sharpshooter
criterion?
fallacy is?
What's the
Have you heard of
criterion
the
for
Texas
determining
sharpshooter
metaphor
fallacy?
versus non-metaphor?
I'm sorry, I can't understand. There is two people talking
The
at the same
Texas
time.
sharpshooter fallacy. It's called the Texas sharpshooter.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of that before?
No. Go ahead.
So it's when somebody's shooting at a target, right? And basically, so the Texas sharpshooter is shooting at the target, and they ignore all of the misses that they do, and they go, "Look, I hit the target 5 or 6 times. Look how accurate my aim is," and he ignores all the stuff around it that didn't hit. And so you're using this fallacy to say, "Hey, it hit here, 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 and here," and it hasn't. Like you're ignoring all the ones that it hasn't hit. Like this jinns and the problems with that are brought up about the way an embryo is conceived and the sex that's assigned. It's not assigned by Allah after the clot has grown. All of these sort of scientific things, you can sort of go, oh, well, they knew that at the time. Did they?
He also didn't
You're
answer
hand
your
waving
question.
it away.
He also didn't answer your question. Because he used the
I'm
word
waiting for
metaphor,
Leo
but
to.
he didn't explain what the criterion he uses is for determining a metaphor versus a non-metaphor, which, as far as I understood, Mark, was the question you were asking.
Yes. How do you
Okay.
evaluate what's a metaphor and what's not a metaphor?
Okay, there is something in Arabic that is called as-siyaq, as-sibaq, al-lihaq. Something little I can't explain to you now, but I can give you like a brief idea. As-siyaq is the context of the text. As-sibaq means the text that was prior to it. Al-lihaq means the text that followed it. And based on as-siyaq, as-sibaq, and al-lihaq, you're able to understand what is the meaning of something. So, for example, when God say about the Quran, لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه, that the Quran falsehood would not come to the Quran neither between its hands nor or out from outside its hands. We know that Allah is not saying the Quran has hands. We totally understand what it means. It's a metaphor. Anybody that this is like the same thing that.
Samir,
Do you like to drink camel piss too? Okay, Samir, do you like to drink camel piss and
come on,
wash your hands with
don't
it?
go there.
Sorry.
Samir, I just fact checked you.
Hold on. I hold on.
You were wrong.
Please no jabs.
Yeah, we moved on from that. I just fact checked you, and turns out that the Maldives is the lowest point on Earth.
Well, actually, I believe the Marianas Trench is the lowest point on Earth.
Yes.
Max, do me a favor. Max, do me a favor. Do me a favor, please. Share the screen and just type on Google what is the lowest point on Earth.
Hold on. What is my search here?
Just one of my chat wants to know, Samir, is there any inaccuracy in the Quran?
Well, not to me.
What do you mean not to you? Like if we're talking about what is true, it doesn't matter what our stances are on it. It doesn't matter like whether I believe it is or not. Like if it's inaccurate, it's inaccurate. And that's the end of the story.
No. Let me explain to you. The Quran has a verse that says لِكُلِّ نَبَإٍ مُسْتَقَرٍ. To every sign or to every information, there is a time when it would be there is an assigned time of understanding, basically, if I translate it correctly. So, for example, when the Quran talked about the universe expanding for 1300 years, it had to fight the current and had other people that would be sitting on panels just like yourself that would be mocking the Quran for saying the universe is expanding. So the Quran did make that prediction.
No, it didn't.
No, it didn't. The people at the time were not
okay.
saying.
So hold on.
Samir, hold on. The people at the time were not even saying there was a universe that hadn't been discovered yet. That's the whole point. You're taking
which makes it more amazing. Which makes it more amazing.
But you said at the time we'd be saying, oh, they'd be laughed at for saying the universe was expanding. No, they weren't saying the universe was expanding because they didn't have a universe to expand and they thought it meant something else. The fact that you are now interpreting it in a different way to fit with science.
No, I'm not interpreting it.
Hang on.
The universe in Arabic is called al-Kawn.
Us discovering that doesn't make it like you're off on a trail. You're sort of saying, hey, it has to be taken this way. No, it doesn't. And the proof of that is back in the day, they took it a different way.
No, that's not what I said. What I said is that the Quran was not trying to conform with the knowledge of the time. The Quran for 1400 years says the universe is expanding. The verse is there. You can find any old Quran from any library in the world, and you will find that it's talking about the heavens expanding 1400 years ago. And the Quran didn't try to conform, like you told Nadir, that whatever is discovered, then you're going to try to conform to it and change your narrative. The Quran didn't change the narrative. It just said the universe is expanding. And it waited until it was the time, until it was discovered. And when it was discovered, Edwin Hubble received the Nobel Prize for it.
Yeah, but at the time there was no universe, so that's not what they said it was.
No.
There was no galaxies discovered. There was none of that discovered.
Their understanding of space was different. They wouldn't have understood space as a thing that expands the way that it does.
What they said, Samir, is that means that the heavens, like the actual skies, are expanding above us. That's what they meant by it. They didn't say universe. They didn't say galaxies. They didn't say any of that stuff. That's my point. That's entirely my point.
Okay. The Quran says, and the heavens we have built with our might, and surely we are expanding them. Take it as whatever, and understand it however you want. To me, it is clear. So you asked me about accuracy. What do I believe? To me, this is a clear sign. It's a sign to me, and I'm satisfied with it.
So how do you know the difference between something like that, which you've interpreted as correct, and whether maybe it was just, like you say, a metaphor? Like, how do you actually make a designation between what's a metaphor and what's something you've interpreted to say, hey, they knew about this and this is science? How do you do that?
Okay. If I happen to do the science myself, let's say, for example, I happen to perform some type of science myself, and I come to some result, and I look back at the Quran, and I say, wow, that's what it meant. This is exactly what it meant the whole time, because I can read the verse, and for a long time I was not understanding that. I'm giving you an example. Then I would say, wow, the Quran did make that prediction. So this is how it would happen. But then if somebody else makes the science, I can also show them the Quran and say, okay, this is what it says. But then what I don't like to take the scientific route, and I like to take the scientific route, is like Isa said, I don't want to be using. I'm not discrediting the Quran. I would be discrediting my interpretation if I make a mistake and I make some interpretation that is wrong, and it turned out to be some new science that says that was wrong. Then it would be on me and not on the Quran.
So Isaiah 40:22 says that God stretched out the heavens like a curtain.
Stretched out is different than continuously stretching.
I think
There's
that
a
was the
difference
Bible.
that I wanted to focus
It
on.
is the Bible.
Like,
It's hundreds of years before the Quran. This is not a scientific claim. This is poetry. You're interpreting a poetic statement as if it's a scientific claim. It's not.
Okay.
And even if it is, it's not novel. It was something that was written in Hebrew scriptures hundreds of years previous.
Okay.
But I think that's what Samir is saying too. Samir is not saying that the Quran is scientific with the C. These are spiritual signs that are being showcased within the text, and that's the narrative. And that's why I think it's problematic when we see Nadir or Nadir making this argument where he's trying to look at scientific journals and trying to align it with the Quran. It's two different conversations. It's comparing an apple to an orange, and it just doesn't work, in my opinion.
Yeah, but both are fruit.
I guess my problem, and what sort of I brought this up in the debate as part of my opening, is that too many Muslims try to get their sort of leverage science to give them credibility. And I'm really sorry, Samir, but that's what I feel like you're doing. You're saying scientific to sort of say, oh, well, it is this really reliable methodology. It just uses science, but it's not reliable, because essentially you're using it up to interpretation, which tons of different Muslims disagree on the interpretations of these things. So if you have a methodology where basically lots of people disagree on the outcome and it's really up to how you spiritually interpret something, that's not a reliable methodology for determining what is true and what is not true about reality. It's just not. I'm really sorry, but it's not. Like, so the scientific method is empirical falsifiability, testing, peer review, retesting, falsifying hypotheses. It is this process that has produced amazing things. Like, we're talking right now because somebody investigated how communications works, how internet works, how routing works across large networks. All of this was done with science. But I feel like, and I'm sorry for being harsh on you, Samir, I feel like you're trying to associate this scientific with scientific, and I really think both of them should just be placed apart. One is
no,
not
I
the
didn't.
other.
No. Let me correct you there. I didn't. I came actually to make to distinguish between the two. I came to tell you that the Quran is not supposed to be a textbook for science, something that you're going to grab the Quran and claim that, okay, I'm going to teach kids science or the methodology or something. What I told you is that the Quran will give you signs, and I'll give you an example. And I honestly just want your honest opinion. If there is a book that tells you humans deny that we are able to reconstitute their bones, furthermore, we are even able to reconstitute their fingertips, the first person, the normal person, would ask, what's so special about fingertips? How is it harder that you gotta reconstitute fingertips than a whole skeleton? And then we come to find out that the fingerprints are unique from one person to another, and it's like the numbers they use is like 1 in like 60 billion or something, but this is just like a fractal. The deeper you dig in how unique are the fingerprints, you will get into trillions, 1 in trillions, that two humans will have the same fingerprints.
Did the Quran say that fingerprints are unique?
Yes.
Where?
The Quran says that God is even, if you doubt that God is able to reconstitute their skeletons or their bones, reassemble their bones, God is even able to reconstitute their fingertips. So what would you say? Give me another explanation. What would you say is so special about fingertips that makes it even harder than
the furthest extremity of your body?
Here's the problem, right? And if the problem is that the fingerprints are not the best security measure for biometrics. The retina is actually a way better security method. The iris and the pattern of the eye is a way better security method than fingerprints. It's even more unique. So then the Quran should say, hey, it's even more harder for Allah to reconstitute eyes. There's other parts of your body that do have fingerprints as well. I think your elbow has a fingerprint. that is unique. I think your knees have one. I'd have to check that, but definitely your eye. There's a reason why people use retina scanners in high security operations over fingerprint scanners. It's because it's even harder to replicate an eyeball than it is to replicate a fingerprint.
God, I want to make a joke.
Okay.
So fucking bad.
No, that is. I'm sorry to disagree, but that is not true. That is just based on the unit, and the unit used. So, like I said, fingerprints are like a fractal. If, for example, you take my fingerprints and yours, with the naked eye, somebody can tell they're different. But if you bring two fingerprints that are like very close together, you're going to have to change the unit to something very small to be able to see the difference between the two fingerprints. And the smaller the unit, the more differences you will see. And it's like a fractal. If you're familiar with the Mandelbrot set.
Yeah.
Hang on a second, just one second, because somebody called me out and I want to share my screen, because just sort of saying no, you're wrong, that's not an argument. So just a second, and I wanna pull this in. Max, if you could be so kind.
Yes, sir.
This is some Smart Eye Technology. It's a journal about security. The retinal security scanning is extremely difficult to be forged because of the uniqueness of the patterns. As a result, even with the least rare drawbacks, it assures the highest level of security and become the most reliable biometric authentication system. There is absolutely no comparison between the fingerprint and the eyeball for its uniqueness. It isn't even in the same ballpark. Just saying nope, it's not an argument, okay? You've got to back this up, and I will back up what I say. But when you say no, you're wrong, be prepared that I will actually call you out and say, no, it is you that's wrong. The eyeball is way more unique, or the retina in particular is way more unique than the fingerprint.
Well, and they're using AI right now to compare fingerprint analysis from across hundreds of different places and finding that fingerprints are not as unique as we used to think that they were, and that they're actually finding many people have identical fingerprints. So,
well, incredibly similar. I would say.
Incredibly similar. Okay, but regardless, my point is that this isn't a claim that's even in the Quran. This is an interpretation that you've made of this verse, and even if fingerprints are the most uniquely identifiable characteristic that a human being could possibly have, the Quran doesn't say that would be the case. You interpret the Quran to say that would be the case.
Let me ask you a question.
Hold on, I have a question. I have something to say.
If I may jump in real quick. First of all, I wanted to say hi to everyone and thanks for letting me join, because I really appreciate that. Second, March, and I'm amazed you didn't bring this up regarding the fingerprints. You know that koala fingerprints have been misidentified as fingerprints of humans, existing human fingerprints, to be more specific.
Really? I did not know that. I didn't bring it up because I did not know.
I don't know what the case was, but there was a criminal case where they had fingerprints and that later turned out to be a koala's fingerprint. But they were close enough to a human's fingerprint, and so they did have a suspect.
Close to ours, but I didn't know they sort of. You know what? I think the koala actually did it, quite frankly. But you know,
probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if it comes to crime,
can I ask a question now?
They are qualified to commit crime.
Right. So yeah, are you going to Samir? Can you just acknowledge that retina scans are more accurate than fingerprints because of the uniqueness of the retina? Can you just acknowledge that for a second?
Okay. Can you let me just ask you, can you acknowledge
answer the question. Whoa. Wait.
Hey, Leo.
Just asked
Leo.
That's okay if you can't.
Leo.
That's okay if you can't. If you say no, I don't agree, that's fine.
I don't agree. I don't agree. Can you acknowledge the argument that I made before about the fractals? about the unit size.
Oh God, this has nothing to do with the question he just asked you. You're dodging.
Yeah, so that's
Oh,
okay. He doesn't
God.
want to acknowledge it. Yeah, so the retina has fractals as well, and it has a more unique pattern than fingerprints. It is way more sensitive. You'll get a way better security reading off of a retina than you will off a fingerprint.
Listen. I don't want to play this game. So let me just ask you a simple question.
God, then answer questions instead of leaving them open-ended and then asking a question yourself. This is very disingenuous behavior. Yeah,
just let him.
Oh
go.
my God!
I wouldn't want to be called out.
This channel is like a rose.
Leo,
This channel is like a rose, and Leo's like the spine on it. God.
What's your
like the iron fist.
Leo, he did answer my question. He said, no, I disagree with that. So that's fine. He answered it in the end. Okay, so that's okay. Samir, what's your question?
Okay. Let me ask you, and honestly answer me. Let's say the Quran said that we are able to reconstitute their eyes. Would that have convinced you?
I don't think so. No, I think that just saying we can reconstitute something. I mean, I don't know any way we can reconstitute an eye. If someone loses an eye, we can't reconstitute it. It's not to do with the pattern on the retina, though. It's to do with us unable to build a bionic eyeball. I don't know why, or regrow limbs.
Okay, let's say it says we reconstitute the pattern.
Question, let me answer it. We can't reconstitute a limb either. We can't reconstitute a knee. Once it's gone, it's gone. We can't reconstitute a spine. Once that's gone, it's gone. There's a lot of things in your body you can't reconstitute. So why in particular does this mean that people have fingerprints that can't be copied?
Can I comment on that? Because I recently sawed my thumb in two. Which means that it pretty much regrew after that. It's doing fairly well at the moment, but my fingerprint isn't the same anymore. So it didn't reconstitute. I have a different fingerprint now. Parts of it are entirely gone. It's just flat.
Actually, my dad sawed off the tip of his finger with a table saw. I think it was a bandsaw, actually, like sawed it off, and they reattached it using surgical means. And the funny thing was, it was pointed like off to an angle because the bandsaw kind of ground it up a bit. So he actually had the fingertip that pointed like that kind of thing. Yeah, a bit more than that though, Copy Breath, a bit more than that. So he would be like, look, I can point around corners kind of thing. He was really funny guy.
I can do that with my nail. It points down because I sawed this one off about 2 decades ago.
What is with you and sawing fingers off, Peter?
No, this one was caught between two knives of a machine that I was working with, and this one I sawed off with a saber saw. I did this one myself.
Considered gloves.
Yes, but the saber saw would go through gloves like through butter. I mean that wouldn't work.
Brad, do you realize this is I wasn't trying to interrupt you, but I was just trying to guide you into answering me. Do you realize that we're talking
you Brad?
That's what he named himself on the screen, genius.
Yes, but his name is
Don't
Mark.
worry about it. Nadir referred to me as Brad during the debate, even though my name is Mark. It's just a joke, Samir. Don't. It's nothing about you. We're not making fun of you. We're kind of making fun of Nadir.
No. Honestly, I wanted to call you Mark, but when I saw Brad written, so I figured that's what he wanted to be called.
It's no problem. It's just a running gag that we had after the debate. It's no problem at all, mate. It's no problem.
Okay. Well, if you can guarantee Leo will be quiet for 44 seconds. Not even that. Okay.
I cannot guarantee.
I said I was trying to salvage your answer by letting you know that the Quran is actually talking about resurrection, not about fingerprints or fingertips being reconstituted during the life. So the examples you were giving me in the arguments were talking about this life. God is saying that after humans die, that's how he's gonna reassemble their skeletons and reconstitute their fingerprints. We're talking about resurrection.
So if Muhammad died in the desert and his atoms turned into a fig tree, and that fig tree turned into a fig, and someone else ate that fig, now they have some of the atoms that used to make up Muhammad when he died. Who gets those atoms when they resurrect?
Okay.
I want
well, no, Samir, I don't see that as a sign of being true, mate. Like just because they say, "Hey,
no, I just want to guide you in the answer. That's all.
It's
well,
a
don't
bit hard
guide
to
my
check,
answer.
too.
Like, just let me answer by myself. And I don't see that it's sort of a holy text saying that, hey, Allah will reconstitute everything, including the fingertips. A, has any significance to fingertips being complex, and B, is any kind of evidence that we will in fact be resurrected, as you say. It's sort of just a claim out there. How would you demonstrate that claim is true?
Okay. So, I mean, it's funny because I always get this feeling that when a point is brought up, it's so easy to make it so ridiculous and whatever. No, let me just lay this egg. For example, no two in the world would disagree that fingerprints are so unique. There are scientific papers that I read about fingerprints that talk about the possibilities.
It's also something they already knew back then, because they could look at their own fingerprints and at someone else's fingerprints, and they could see they were different. It's not something really special, right? I mean, it's literally something you can observe.
It's literally not even said in the text.
I asked Mark for the link.
Wasn't your claim. That wasn't your claim, Samir. Your claim was the fingerprints were the most complex thing on your body. That was your claim. And then I said, no, the eye is, and you said I was wrong. And then I sort of showed this paper saying you were wrong, and you still want to argue. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
I asked you to. Okay.
So just
Leo,
just wanted to say that quick. I'm Audi 5000. Peace out.
All right, see you, Leo.
Also, your brain is the most complex thing in your body. That's just so you know.
Later.
Well,
Later, Leo.
I guess maybe that's true. I don't know about that.
I asked Mark for the link when you were still on the lamps thing. I hosted a show on Arn Ross channel where Arn was debating Nadir for the umpteenth time about the scientific accuracy of the Quran. And I suggested to Arn that he should rename that show The Silence of the Lamps, because Nadir did not want to answer the question about the lamps, which was hilarious because the chat was blowing up. It is not a metaphor if the sky is filled with lamps that Allah can use and throw at people and at devils. I forgot the
jinn.
At the jinn. So it's not a metaphor if that is how it's described. The lamps can be thrown at people and at jinn. You can't throw a metaphor at a jinn. That's impossible.
Okay, if the Quran was one verse, there is a verse that says "Atba'nahu shihaban taqib." We hit him, or we chased him, or we had him followed by a shihab, would be a piercing torch. And when you look at asteroids, they are literally lit, and they when they pierce the atmosphere. So that's a very good, accurate description of what it is.
But earlier you said it's a metaphor. So now you're choosing a different explanation because I just.
It is still a metaphor. It is still a metaphor. It is still a metaphor.
I spent about a year and a half hosting the show, reading the Quran with several ex-Muslims, and at some point even a few Muslim, still practicing Muslims on the show. I can tell you that when it comes to most people in Arabic countries, you're wrong, because it's not. They don't see that as a metaphor. They see that as a description of what's in the sky and its actual things, and it is based on shooting stars or asteroids or things. I don't.
What was the name of that fallacy again?
Meteorites.
You spent a year and a half, and I spent 46 years.
Yes, and the people we had on the panel spent in total, I think, a couple of 100 years studying the Quran.
And the people that I hang out with spent tens of thousands of years combined.
Okay, this is getting a bit ridiculous.
That's great.
Now
That's great.
like...
But I mean, we're talking about verses in the Quran. We're talking about the best explanation. So you just went from it is a metaphor to now it's a meteorite. So that's a meteorite isn't a metaphor, because meteorites are actually real. We know they are real. We have seen them, and we have found the remains on Earth. So we know those are real.
Still a metaphor because it's called the torches. Piercing torches is still a metaphor.
Yeah,
piercing torches is still a metaphor.
Well, Samir, I don't think piercing torches is particularly accurate. Like when we're talking about meteorites,
it's still not something that.
Well, Peter,
that
just a sec. Peter. When we're talking about meteorites, we're talking about a rocky or metallic body that has fallen away from some sort of orbit or in some sort of parabola around the sun that has entered the atmosphere, and it's not like it burns up a bit, but just saying flaming torches piercing that's not accurate. I'm really sorry, it's not. A lot of it is metaphorical. You're saying, hey, that sounds like it could be a meteorite. Yeah, sure, it sounds like it could be a meteorite. Do we know that's what we meant? No. And so I think what's happening here, and I'm really sorry to say this, but I think, Samir, it's a metaphor when you need it to be a metaphor, and it's describing something when you need it to be describing something.
Exactly.
No, I promise you that is not the case. What we said
earlier was the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. You're counting all the hits and you're ignoring all the misses.
I have a question.
Max wants to talk, so I'm not gonna. Max, go ahead, buddy.
Okay.
Samir, you did this live on the stream, so people can just go back where you just changed it from a metaphor to something that is actually real. So
no, they can go. They can go back and hear me. They can go back and hear me say it's still a metaphor. Exactly said this word. It's still a metaphor.
Okay, I think Max
has something to say. Thank you for suggesting that.
So in the same sentence, we have the metaphor of the meteorites or the shooting stars or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And then in the same sentence, we have the jinn named. So how can we determine when within one sentence we change from a metaphor to describing something real? Like jinn are proposed to be in Islam.
Okay. Okay. Let me tell you. If you say you like he punched him like I don't know, like a hammer fist. He punched Joe with the hammer fist. Now, is his fist a hammer? No. Is Joe real? Yes.
It's a weird,
but
weird
I
thing
didn't
to say.
ask you. I asked how can we determine, because in that it's very clear. But here I have two claims: the shooting stars or the meteorites across the sky, and then I have something which I also can consider a metaphor, which is jinn. Because in that case, in your example, it was very clear the distinction.
Yeah, and he made another mistake, because a hammer fist is not a good analogy, because it's still a fist which is real. The Quran doesn't say it's an asteroid or it's a meteor. It says it's a torch, which it isn't. It's definitely not anywhere near a torch.
Okay, you seriously realize that I just came up with an example in like 0.44 seconds to give you an example. I can come up with an example that doesn't have any parts that is real. Any part that is real.
I'm just saying it's a bad example. If you want to come up with a good example, then you might want to think longer about it.
I believe it makes the argument. It's to me, I believe it makes the argument. When you call something, when you say a hammer fist, you're talking about something metaphorical.
Okay.
It's not really a hammer fist.
Okay, so
it's a flesh fist.
Okay, so part of it is real and part of it is a metaphor. So the part where Allah throws it at people or at jinn, how real is that? And how does he throw it? And how accurate is he? How many people has he hit? Because I don't recall people ever being hit by a meteorite.
People, jinn are not people.
1 second. We
Jinn
have a
are not
super
people.
chat. One
The
second.
Quran says the
One
Quran says
second.
people and jinn.
One second, please.
No,
we
it
have
doesn't.
We have a super chat, Mark. Do you want me to show it? And
Yeah,
we
well,
can
I'll
address
read it out because it is from one of my wonderful people out there. Just a Lord of Fools for $5. Thank you so much, Jester. My father spent decades reading The Lord of the Rings, and I won plenty of debates about details of it, despite only reading it once. Accuracy matters more than time, and I could not agree more.
Yes.
I'd like to say something real quickly.
Oh, and there's a new thing on YouTube. There's a new thing on YouTube. You can now actually like super chats. So make sure you hit the like button for that particular person too.
Hey, Peter, can you support your claim that it was thrown at humans, at people?
I know that we discussed it on the panel for a long time, and I know that there were I think two practicing Muslims on that panel when we discussed it. I don't know the verse anymore. I'm the producer of the show, so during the show I need to make sure that the show goes out correctly. I need to monitor the chat and put questions into the private chat so Arn could read them out. I couldn't tell you which verse it was, but I know that it was mentioned that Allah can use it to throw a lamp at a person or a jinn.
No, that is not true. The combined years of experience with the people you hang out with came up with the wrong statement.
I mean, Nadir agreed with it.
No, that is not true. That's not what it says in the Quran. It specifically talks about jinn.
Hold on.
It doesn't talk about people.
It is true. It is true that Nadir agreed with that particular explanation of the verse.
When did he do that? In today's debate? I didn't hear that.
No, I told you this was when he was on Arn Ross channel.
I don't see how I would agree with it because that's not what the verse says.
And this wasn't just one time. This was brought up in at least 3 different shows on Arn Ross channel where Nadir vehemently said that the lamps could be thrown at both jinn and people, and Allah could use them in that way.
Okay.
But he didn't want to explain. What he didn't want to explain is what the lamps were, because the lamps in the sky cannot be asteroids, because the lamps in the sky are also stars, and there's no way that a star could be thrown at Earth.
Pretty
Not
terrible
ever.
sign. Sorry.
Yeah, that wouldn't work, and you wouldn't hit a particular jinn. You would just annihilate the entire planet, because most stars are bigger than our planet. So the verse is inaccurate in several different ways. Even if you're going to use it as a metaphor, you're going to fail. And it is a claim that Allah made, apparently. So Allah is wrong. We know for a fact that he's wrong because Allah didn't know what a star was.
I don't even know where to begin to answer you because I asked you to just give me a proof for what you said, because you said I was wrong. So you had to provide proof. And the verse that you're quoting, the name of the whole surah or the whole chapter is called Al-Jinn, Surat Al-Jinn. Yeah. And the whole all the verses قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا إنا سمعنا قرآن. Anyway, I'm not gonna bore you with this, but the whole verse talk about jinn. There is no mentioning of humans. And I was waiting for you to give me proof for humans, and then you moved on to like 3 or 4 different points, and I don't want to chase you everywhere. So just establish with me that was wrong, and then move on to something else so I can answer you.
I'll see if I can find it.
Okay.
Samir, I think I read I'm a Christian. I read the Bible. I hold the Bible as a holy book, and I find things in the Bible that are scientifically inaccurate. And I see those things, and it doesn't trouble my faith because I don't hold to the Bible as a scientifically accurate book. I hold to the Bible for different kinds of truths. If you're holding on to the Quran because it's a scientific book, when you run across things that are scientifically inaccurate, it's going to be problematic for your faith If instead you take the Quran on its face as its own kind of document and read it for what it is, which is not a scientific book, then you won't suffer that same consequence. You'll be able to accept it for what it is, and it won't cause the same kind of jeopardy to your faith as it's causing. I don't know if it's causing any kind of jeopardy to your faith right now, but it probably should if you're saying that this verse in particular is scientific, because scientifically there's no such thing as jinns.
Okay. I think you heard what was the first comment that I made when I came on the stream. I came to defend that the Quran is scientific, not scientific. And something else that people don't understand is that in order for me to be Muslim, the rules of being a mu'min, Isa would know what is mu'min. I'm pretty sure some of you here would know too. I have to believe, among the things that I have to believe in is the previous books. So I believe in the Bible, I believe in the Torah, I believe in all the prophets, whether they were, whose names were mentioned in the Quran, which were 25, and the other thousands who weren't mentioned in the Quran. So as someone who believes that the Bible is from God, I also will defend the Bible that it's a book of science. And the reason why, and I would not use the word science, the reason why is because at the end of the day, it's all about believing. If I showed you that the suitcase had $1 million and then I asked you, do you believe? There is no point of asking that question. If I give you a closed suitcase and I tell you there is $1 million in it, then I can talk about believing or not believing. But if I open the suitcase and you see it, which is the science would be, the accuracy that they're asking for, then there is no point of believing. Now we're talking about knowing, not believing. So this is the point that I came to defend.
If you're talking about this book as its signs that you want to hold to, then what's the point in defending the literal truth of these lamps are torches and these must literally be accurately represented as meteorite? You're talking about science, so just why even bother with that discussion at all?
And that's a very poor argument, Samir. I also want to address that. That's a very poor argument saying, hey, if I show you, then I don't have to ask you. Because what we're talking about is what's the best way to get to the truth, what's the best methodology. And so if you want to know, not just believe, if you want to know whether there's money in the suitcase, just having a guess at it isn't a good way to determine that's the truth. The best way is to open up the suitcase and see if there is money in there. Like, it's sort of like you're sort of saying, hey, I've got this alternative way of finding the truth that involves signs, but I don't want to actually like use the most reliable method. I want to use the method that feels good to me. And you can do that. Like, I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm really sorry. That's not what I'm interested in. I want the most reliable way to find out if, in fact, this book is saying things that are true. And so the way that you've described just isn't very effective. I'm sorry, it isn't.
Okay, I'll modify the example a little bit. I'm sorry, Peter. Would you give me just 30 seconds? I'll just modify the example slightly.
I just want to correct what I said, because you were right. It is verse 67:5, and it is missiles for the devils. It also states that the nearest heaven is adorned with lamps. These lamps are the missiles. So basically what it says is it's referring to stars, and stars cannot be flung.
Okay. Okay. I'll get back to the point. Sorry, I just don't want to lose my train of thoughts.
Go ahead. I just wanted to correct and say that you were right. It wasn't to be thrown at.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Let me just modify the suitcase example a little bit. And this is something that we deal with, like when the SWAT team comes up or the bomb team comes up. Let's say there is a suitcase left somewhere, and now the suitcase is closed. They can just open it and find out if it has explosive or not. But now, is there signs that suitcase could be dangerous? If there is if there is a phone call, there is a threat, there is a tip, there is a terrorist that took a certain flight, there is those are all signs. If you have all these signs, then they would lead you to believe, not know, to believe that that suitcase might have explosives in it. So these are the signs I'm talking about. If there is signs that lead you to believe in something, that the Bible is true, that the Torah is true, that the Quran is true, that it came from God, those are signs that are going to lead you to believe, not to know. So
it still
doesn't.
No, hang on. I got to address this. Peter, I got to address this because it was to me. Okay, so he's modified his analogy, and I love it. I love this sort of modification that you've done. So we get a tip off. There's something in the case, right? What we don't do is just believe that it's a bomb and leave it there to explode. That's what we don't do, Samir, because that's dangerous, right? That is a silly way to engage with a bomb. What we do is we take that on board and then we investigate further. We send the bomb squad, we send the robot, we send experts in analyzing these things, and then we open it up after taking all precautions to ensure our safety. We still investigate. You're sort of saying, hey, if you think there's a bomb, we just leave it there and say, no, we don't look at it. No, that's not what we do. We get in people who can study and examine and do testing and maybe use a robot, which is also a product of science, and actually investigate what is in fact in the bomb. Because if you take your example, you will never know what's in the suitcase. It could just be a clock. It could just be a clock. But you're saying, hey, no, don't look at, see if it's a clock. Just leave it.
All of these, that's what I wanted to say.
I didn't say leave it. I never said leave it.
All of these signs still don't make the suitcase contain a bomb.
I never said leave it. I never said leave it. That was never my argument, to leave it or not.
No, but you can't get to the conclusion that it's a bomb either.
Okay.
You have a lot of signs.
The point that I made is very clear. The point that I made is very clear. We're not.
You have the signs, and Mark explained this is how we interact with the suitcase in order to find out.
You're not going to do that with every suitcase. You're not going to do that with every bag and every suitcase.
They are doing that with every suitcase.
That's exactly what they do.
It's happened. In my country, it has happened at least 3 times in the past 6 months. We do that with every package where there are signs that it might contain explosives. Yes, we do that with every package. And guess what? Every package they opened, none of them contained a bomb. Even though there were very strong signs, it was all left under suspicious circumstances by people acting suspicious. They had the people on camera, and guess what? There were just people who forgot their backpack or a bag and just left it there. So all of your signs do not conclude that there is a bomb in the suitcase. And 9 out of 10 times, there isn't.
Okay. Well, I'm like Rudy. I feel bad for using this example because I don't want to get the YouTube bots to kind of track some certain keywords on this stream.
Well, please
the reason
don't.
I use
please don't. Hey, no. If you're going to get people demonetized and stuff, that is not cool, dude. Seriously, don't do that.
I want to say one thing. In defense of Samir,
I'm sorry. Give me a second. I'm saying that I wasn't going to even use those words. So I don't know why you said please don't. I'm actually the one worried about your channel.
Well, you're talking about sort of getting people demonetized or, sort of using words that I don't know what these words are. There's just certain words that will automatically demonetize a channel, and we don't want to have that.
No. That's not what I said. Let me explain myself, Mark, please. What I said is that the word that started with the letter B that we used in the example, I was wondering if we should stop using it because I was worried about your channel. I don't know for a fact that it's so I was concerned about your channel. I was showing courtesy here.
I don't think that's going to get you demonetized.
Because you can say that's the bomb, and you're not even talking about that, Samir. So I don't.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just trying to be courteous. Anyway, so the point that I made, and you said it too, Peter. You said there are signs, and when I asked you if they check every baggage, you said they do, and then you said last 6 months it was like they checked like 3 of them. That's not every package. They only check packages where there is a sign. So this is what I'm trying to tell
There
you.
were
I'm
only
not
3. Hold on, Samir. There were only 3 where there were strong signs that there could be something left in a package. I think 3 in 6 months is quite a lot, actually. It's not that you wouldn't expect people to leave explosives
really
on
far
a
off the
daily
point.
basis, right?
Yeah, I think we're
Yeah,
very
this
far.
is not what I meant this to go. It like totally flew out of control. That's not what I meant to take the example.
I think one of the things that Samir is saying that isn't being heard is that there is a value in belief that doesn't exist when we have knowledge. And I think what Samir is saying is that God, when we have a belief in a deity that has a certain value, if we only had certain knowledge of a deity, it would have a different kind of value. So by not giving us certain, well, you're not giving us certain knowledge, it gives us the value that comes with belief.
What's the value?
Thank you,
that comes
thank you.
with
You
belief?
worded it much better than I did.
I'm really curious.
I would probably disagree, and not because I'm saying, hey, you can't believe what you want to believe. That's perfectly fine. But what is happening here is that Samir is saying, hey, there's these signs. Why don't you see these signs like I do and give you reason to believe? And so that's what I'm pushing back on. The idea that I should see this as some kind of indication that there is something in the package, is something in the suitcase that I have to believe is there without actually investigating it. So this isn't, to me, just a belief that you have. This is sort of unfounded belief. There's no real reason to believe there's something in the package. We should check it out first. But the argument being made is listen to the signs, don't investigate. And that's what I have the problem with. And that's why I can't just say, hey, I see the signs and so I'll believe, because I'm skeptical. I don't work like that. I may see signs. I think at that point, when you see signs, you say, hey, I want to investigate further. If you investigate further and don't come up with anything, well, I'm sorry. That's just, there's nothing to believe there. In my opinion, that's how I work.
Well,
I have a question to
sorry, just
Coffee
one second, Coffee Breath, and that's not saying that you're wrong for believing in that. I'm just saying that's how I work. That's just me. Okay, so yeah.
I'm really curious, Coffee Breath. What is the value in believing in a God?
The erosion of free will. If you have absolute certainty, then you can't freely choose to believe in something.
I don't think we have free will anyway. So that for me,
Then
there's
that's a
no
different
additional
discussion.
value.
I'm a bit of a compatible. Yeah, this will go down a long road. I totally.
It's going to be
real question.
Most believers I've talked to will tell you that you have free will, because
I think you have free will.
At least the God of the Bible allows you to sin, which means that you have free will. You can't have free will if you read if you interpret the Bible correctly, at least according to my opinion. But most Christians will tell you different.
So I'm really intrigued. What do you mean by the erosion of free will? What do you mean by that? Like, are you saying that not believing in God erodes free will, or believing in God erodes? I'm a little confused. I'm sorry.
If you have belief in a deity, then you can believe in that deity, or you can not. If you have certain knowledge of a deity, then you can't choose to believe in it or not. You're persuaded by the.
Well, I don't think you choose to believe.
You can't be persuaded if you don't have free will.
I'm a doxastic voluntarist, so I think that you can choose beliefs.
Doxastic involuntarist. So I think you're convinced, and you can convince yourself. I think that sort of convincing yourself is something that we do, but I think that the inception point of that idea will always be known deep down. I think that you will be aware that you have convinced yourself, and it won't really be a true belief. I think that we do that a lot. Like, deep down, we know that that's not something we really believe. I don't like I get where you're coming from. I just don't think we choose. Like, could I ask you to not believe in God right now? Is that something you could do?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm agnostic Christian, so I would be in a different camp than many other Christians. But
or could you just believe in Bigfoot is in my garage right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, sure.
He's free to believe it if he chooses to.
You could actually believe
Can you
that.
send a donation to Bigfoot, because he's really hard to maintain, needs a lot of food. I don't think you believe that. I don't think you believe that at all.
Yeah, I don't think that either.
No, but the point he's trying to make, I mean, he whether he believes it or not, there are people that believe that Earth is flat, and they chose to believe that.
But the point we're trying to make is that you can't make yourself believe something that you do not believe. That's impossible.
That is not true. That is not true. When two nations are at war,
that is true.
Samir, just
that
saying,
is
I
true.
think you can be convinced of things. Like, you can convince yourself of things through repeated affirmations or negations over and over and over. I think you can convince yourself. But what I'm talking about is just the switch. This Bigfoot Jesus in the chat. The switch from non-belief to belief. It isn't that easy. It requires something to be a catalyst for that change, and I don't think that's necessarily voluntary. I think that we sort of have things convince us, like you were talking about, and then we start to reinforce that to ourselves. I think it's a long process that requires outside intervention in order to change your mind. I don't think we can just change our beliefs by themselves.
What is voluntary? What is voluntary is going to look for things that confirm the thing you want to believe, which is the confirmation bias. So people will go out and look for all kinds of evidence that will confirm what they would want to believe, and then at some point they can convince themselves and actually believe it.
That is not true, but that is not necessary.
That is true, because I've done it in the past. I've done it in the past with the whole ancient aliens thing, which started out with Eric von Däniken. I read his book, and then I started investigating. And there were a lot of things, and people were making it very plausible. And so at some point, I was convinced that this guy might be onto something. And then I found out it was all bogus.
Okay.
So now I no longer believe it. But this is actually, you mentioned flat earthers. This is what flat earthers do. They go watch YouTube videos.
Let me give you a contradiction of that. When two nations are at war, you got almost unanimous belief from either side, from either population. It could be 100 million over here and 300 million over here, that their side is right.
No. And I can tell you why, because I live in the Netherlands. We had the Second World War. I have a lot of friends in Germany who during the entire war thought that it was wrong what Germany was doing. And that was a massive amount of the population. So you're definitely wrong.
Well, I'm intrigued. How does that got to do with stochasticism? How does that relate into what you believe changing?
Okay, it will take more words to say my opinion. But before I answer you, I just want to ask this question for Billy, Dr. J, and Max.
I just want to give a big shout out to Squid Super Hunk. I'm sorry I missed it before, and I just laughed at it and then ignored it. I'm sorry. It's US $5 for Bigfoot, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Sorry, Samir. Go ahead, mate.
No problem. Before I answer, I just wanted to ask Billy, Dr. J, Isa, and Max if we kind of bullied them out of this conversation, and I apologize if we did, because we kind of played tennis here with this argument. If you guys had something to say, we can be quiet for a little bit.
It's fine. I have the power. If I want to silence you, I can just click a button. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he's a
All right. What about the other three?
No problem. There can only so many people have a conversation at once. So you guys go ahead.
I'll drop out soon. I'm actually pretty tired.
So I'll make my point then. I'll make my point then to kind of defend Coffee Brett's point a little bit. The way I see it is that everything in this universe, everything, including us, is deterministic, except for 0 point, a microscopic number for ourselves, that we have a free will. At any given split of a second, there are trillions of transactions that are happening in your body that you're not responsible for. There is things that happen inside your cells and neurons and things. Trillions of things happen in every split of a second that you're not responsible for. And besides the living things, besides humans having that free will and this, which is that little microscopic number, nothing else, everything else is deterministic. And this is how we believe that God made the universe. So for us, God told us what we're supposed to do. It's not like he gave us that free will. This is what I believe. It's not like he gave us that free will and say, do whatever you want. He says, this is what I want you to do, but I'm going to give you the freedom to whether do it or not. So now, do I want to behave like everything else?
Now you're contradicting yourself.
Let me finish contradicting myself. Let me finish contradicting myself, please.
Yeah,
let me just finish.
Okay, and then jump in, mate. Just
So what I believe is that everything else in the universe, for example, if you touch fire, it would burn you. If you touch electricity, you will get electrocuted. If you go somewhere where there is no oxygen, you will suffocate. Everything is deterministic in the universe, except for us. We have that choice. God told us what the rules are, and these rules. So when we talk about the word believe earlier, this is the point that I was trying to make. That belief is just not about. It's not about the science. This is like a fraction, science or signs and all that. This is just a fraction. There are other aspects of it, like both Islam and Christianity. They say that, for example, Islam, and I know Christianity says the same thing, that you are not a true Muslim unless you like for your brother that which you like for yourself. For example, any subjective morality would not tell you that, oh, you got to like for other people what you like for yourself.
Samir, I have a quick question. I have a quick question that will destroy. I have a quick question that will destroy what you just said. Can I ask you that question?
Sure. Then it must be deterministic. Then.
Yes. So let's say is Allah omniscient?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if Allah knows that I'm going to die an atheist, is there anything I can do to become a Muslim?
Okay. This is you're not going to destroy anything. This is funny that
it's a very simple. It's a very simple question. It's a yes or no. It's a yes or no question.
No, it's not.
Okay. No, I can. I mean, I can answer you. I can answer you. Honestly, I'm going to answer you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we believe. God. This is what we believe as Muslims. God, before we were created, we were each given the challenge in front of us. And we accepted the challenge. And God in the Quran says that the challenge was given to many creatures, and the humans have accepted the challenge, and human has transgressed against themselves for accepting the challenge, for having this choice. So when we were given this,
it doesn't answer my question. It doesn't answer my question because I didn't ask what happened before I was born. I'm asking right now, if Allah knows that I'm going to die right now, at this point in time, Allah knows that I'm going to die an atheist, can I become a Muslim, yes or no?
Okay. God gave you the choice to become a Muslim or not. God knows.
Question.
Yes, you can become a Muslim. Yes, you can become a Muslim.
To be omniscient, you must know everything that can be known. And if God can't know future events because we have free will, then God can't know if you're going to die an atheist or not.
Exactly.
Okay. No,
So the answer,
that is
to
not the
my
case.
question, Samir, I'll help you out. The answer to my question is no. I cannot
No,
become
the answer
a
to your
Muslim.
question is it's a malformed question because you started your question with if God knows that I will die an atheist. God doesn't know that you will die an atheist, so it's a malformed question.
So God is not omniscient.
Not omniscient.
No, but
Then
no,
he's
but
not
but
omniscient.
that
And
no,
I asked Samir specifically whether or not Allah was omniscient, and he said yes.
Yes,
So
God
that
is
rules
omniscient.
out that rules out
How?
your option, because there is only one end conclusion, right? I can only die once, and I will die either an atheist or a Muslim or a Christian, but
There's an infinite set of endpoints.
I can't die as all three of them because I'm only going to die one time.
But as omniscient, God should know which of those endpoints will in fact be the causal outcome of any.
Okay.
But God
I'll
knows.
answer you.
God knows
Okay.
those things at time X.
I'll
God does
answer
not
you.
know those things at time X minus T.
Then
T
he's
minus
not.
X.
Then he's.
Yeah,
then
but
he's
that
No,
means
not
to be
knows it from the
omniscient.
starting.
To be
That
omniscient
means he
doesn't mean
knows
to
it.
know
That
everything
means he
ever.
knows it from the starting of the universe. Yes, it does. That's what it means. It
Yes,
means
he
knowing
does. And according to the Bible, the God of the Bible actually knows everything you're going to do from before you were born until you die.
There's a different disagreement about God's existence in time and its knowledge of temporal events based
We're
on
not
its.
talking about God's existence
Peter,
in
if you
time.
want to
We're
hear what
talking
people
about-
have to say, you have to
about-
not talk over them.
Yes, but we're talking about our existence.
I'm trying to
not
talk,
God's.
but you won't let me talk. So, in order for God to have knowledge of an event, the event has to happen. So, if God isn't open time, I don't know if God is even real. But there's a lot of different thoughts here, and you're taking one philosophical approach to this problem, and there's a number of them. And one of those philosophical approaches says that God's omniscience is limited to its position in reality. This is a philosophy developed by Hartshorne in his Divine Relativity. If God lives outside of time and its knowledge is relative to the experiences that are occurring in the moment, then God grows as time grows. And its knowledge grows as
God
time
lives
grows.
outside of time, that means that he's impotent.
Hang on, Peter, that aside, we've gone off the topic because this in no way addresses whether you can choose beliefs or not, which was the original thing we were talking about. Because you can have free will and still decide actions you take without changing your beliefs. So it is nothing to do with the original topic. It's just, I'm really sorry, Samir, you're just throwing stuff out. Then you wanted to go to morality. Which is Samir. Samir. Then you wanted to go to morality, which is gish galloping. You're just throwing out and seeing what sticks. I'm terribly sorry. I'm really tired. I'm gonna pack it in because I did the debate and now.
Okay, can I just finish my answer if you don't mind, because I never finished my answer.
You're going to talk as well because I did.
Okay, thank you. Because I never finished my. I never finished. Peter, please. I never finished my answer to you when you just. Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna give you a very simple answer, and I believe it's a beautiful answer. I just hope you can appreciate it. If you know the what they call them, the Einstein twins or whatever, when two twins were born and one of them travels at the close to speed of light and comes back, and like he barely aged, and the other one is 9 years old. So now, if we look at those two people. If the person that traveled at the speed of light somehow is omniscient and can figure out what the other person did during his 90 years, then at 5 years old, he would know what his brother did up to 90 years old. So now we're talking about God like only the rules of physics that we know here will apply to God. If different rules can apply to the Einstein twins, so I don't know how we can enclose God within our little accumulated knowledge. And God also in the Quran talks about things in the future in the form of the past. So we're talking like the Einstein twins. So maybe there is a factor that neither of us can factor in so you would understand why God knew that you weren't going to die as a believer.
Samir, that's not how time dilation works, mate. That isn't how time dilation works.
No.
The other person, no, Samir, the other person's not actually in the future, right? They just traveled, like they just experienced more time than the other one. They're both in the present. That isn't how that works.
Okay. What the example that I gave you, I said you take that example and you add a little more supernatural thing, because this is unusual for two people to age differently. I'm sorry. This is unusual for two people to age differently. So this is an experiment by humans. So now if you add the power of the all-powerful God, then he can have other criterias to add to this little Einstein twin experiment, to where God would see things that you would not see, to where your future is the past to God.
Okay, I'm going to help you out, Samir, because you're kind of like not helping yourself here. Like, look up how time dilation works, because
I know
you're
how
not
it works.
helping you.
And also,
Okay.
if your future is the past for God, then you could have answered my question whether or not it was possible for me to die as a Muslim. But I have a question, Mark. Are you going to mirror the debate on your channel?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, absolutely.
I am refusing to watch modern day debate.
Peter,
okay.
Peter, do you know if you're going to die as a Muslim? Peter, do you know that?
I know for a fact that I'm not going to die as a Muslim, based on the knowledge I have and based on the failing to meet the burden of proof of both the Quran and every Muslim I've come across so far.
Okay, let's not say Muslim, just say a theist in general. So you know that.
Yes, I'm more than happy to say theist, because the same thing goes for the Bible and Christianity.
So you made that assumption based on the knowledge you have now.
It's
you
not
didn't know that 20 years from now you'll have a different knowledge.
No, it's not an assumption. If you study some of the holy books and you come up with things that are 100% wrong, then there's no way that those books could be the word of an all-knowing God who created the universe, if this God doesn't even know what he created, how he created, and in the sequence he created it in. So there's no coming.
I'm gonna
there's no
interrupt
coming,
real quick and just
there's
say
no
I'm going to
coming
bed.
back
So
from that.
good night, everybody.
Good night, Coffee Breath.
Really
Good talking to you.
I wouldn't mind talking to you again. It'd be awesome.
So Peter, you guarantee that you're not going to have an experience in your life. Let's say, for example, you were very sick and Jesus came to you. You witnessed that. It was subjective to you. It wasn't to the whole humanity.
I'll help you out with that. I think Mark can confirm that, because I've told it on my own channel several times. I told it on different other channels as well. I had an alien experience, and I still do not believe that I saw an actual alien.
Okay, no. Let's say,
does that help you out?
No, it doesn't.
If I saw Jesus, that would take some pretty good convincing to make me actually believe that was Jesus.
No.
So far I'm in the ballpark where I think he never existed. He's an amalgamation of several different characters.
I'm just trying to make the distinction between your knowledge now and your knowledge in the future. So you're in bed, you have some terminal illness, and you had a vision of, for example, Jesus coming to you, and he put his hand on your chest. And let me just lay this egg before you boil it. So he put his hand on your chest, and he tells you, get up, you are cured. And then you wake up from that coma, and you see the doctors around you like shaking their heads, and it's like, wow, he's cancer free. Wow, what happened? Would that be an experience for you, or would?
Yeah, I wouldn't believe that it was Jesus who cured me, because if I open my eyes and the first thing I see is doctors.
No, they're baffled. They're baffled. The doctors are baffled. The doctors are baffled. They don't know what the heck happened. They're looking at you and baffled.
The doctors wouldn't be baffled, because we know that cancer can go.
No, I gave you an example where they're baffled.
let me
Okay,
finish.
okay. So this is getting away from us into some kind of wild
Yes.
hypothetical thing that's never happened. And
Yes.
so well, I think that at that point you would have to be there to evaluate it, Samir. Like, what reaction would I have if this thing happened? I don't know. I've never been in that situation. Can we wait until it actually... No, Samir, can we wait until it actually happens? And I'll say, hey, that would be evidence I would like to look at. But what happens if we look at it and we find that it's natural remission? What happens if we look at it and we find out it's something else? What if we look at it and we find out it's aliens? What if we look at it and we find out that it's magic? Like, there's all these what ifs you're going through. You know, what if we look at it and we find out that it's a herb that cured it? We don't know until we actually go investigate. And this is the problem that you have. You're saying, hey, there's this sign that there's something in the suitcase. Don't look at it. Just believe that it is what the sign says. No, that's not what we do. We go.
Mark, I'm sorry. That wasn't my point. That wasn't my point.
Samir, at that point, we will want to go and investigate it and find out what it is. If it's truly a miracle, then we'll find out it's a miracle. But we'll cross that bridge.
So you just made my point.
Samir mentioned.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was waiting for Peter. Peter, I was waiting for him to finish because I know. I just want to as well. Please, just 1 second. He just made a point. No, because he just made my point for me. He said at that time he will investigate it. My point was not to make a miracle, and I only used Jesus. I only used Jesus to show some respect to other religions, like, because usually I wouldn't.
I don't care.
So anyway, Peter,
and it could be Muhammad.
Peter. No, so my example, Peter.
You asked me.
Oh my God, I don't like to. No, I'm answering Mark. Peter, please, just 1 second. So Mark, my point with this example was not. My point was just to refute the fact that he said that he knows that he will die as an atheist. I was just trying to give him an example that something miraculous could happen. He could change. If he's asking that if God knows, and then he's telling me that he knows.
When we use
Samir, I'm here. You asked me the question.
Peter, sometimes when we use no, we're not saying we have absolute knowledge of all prior events in the future. When I say I know this will happen, what I'm saying is I have an incredibly high confidence level in it. Like, I know that this is reality around me. But part of me says, hey, I don't absolutely know 100% without any kind of margin at all, because it's impossible to know. And I can get into that at some other point. You know, I really don't want to go through hard solipsism and simulation.
That's the point I was trying to make. That's all.
But Samir, when we say we know, it's a justified true belief claim, right? So we know, like, hey, we have a justification for it, which Peter in fact gave. And if in fact that is true in the future, then Peter did know that. If he dies an atheist, then he damn well knew it. If he doesn't die an atheist, then he's wrong and didn't know it. But until we get to that point, we don't know for 100% absolute certainty whether Peter does know or does not know, because the outcome has not yet been presented to us. Once it happens, unless Peter lives forever, which I really hope happens, but we won't know.
That's the point. That's exactly the point I'm making. You can call it 99.9999%. Call it whatever, but it would not be a certainty right now that you know.
That's not what
how you're going to die.
Means. There's never any absolute 100% certainty. Even when I say, hey, I know the sky is blue, right? It could be a simulation and none of it's real and there's no sky, right? Nothing is ever what you're claiming it to be. When you say, I know, it's absolute certainty. He's not saying absolute certainty. He's saying he knows, as in it is a justified true belief. And we will know if Peter has a justified true belief when it happens.
So that was the point I was trying to make. Exactly the point I was trying to make.
And Samir, for your example, do you know that you can induce such a vision if you would really want to? Because I can direct my dreams. All I need to do is play something in the background that will control my brain, and my dreams will go either this way or that way. And I have several different things that I can play, and I know what I'm going to dream about, and I'm going to enjoy my dreams. People can actually control their dreams. You can even you can learn to do that. I can't do it, but people can control their dreams while they're dreaming, correct their dream, and put it, lucid dreaming. So your example of me having a vision of Jesus could be induced by two people standing beside my bed talking about Jesus, which induces a vision that I have, and I see an actual guy that I think looks like Jesus, because no one knows what Jesus looks like. So we couldn't even identify him, even if we saw him. If I bumped into him on the street, I wouldn't know that it was Jesus. But I can have that. I can have that vision induced, and then think when I wake up, "Hey, I saw this guy with a beard, and he looked like Jesus." It doesn't mean it's Jesus.
It here, guys. Peter, I'm going to call it here. I'm way too tired. All right, just finish. Wrap it up.
Problem.
Wrap it up, because I do want
to
get off the.
That's it. I wouldn't even accept the hallucination or the vision or whatever you say without investigating, which is what I did when I had my alien encounter. I didn't accept it as real until I figured it out and found a decent explanation based on science that explained it to me. And that
but you never experienced controlled dreams, but you are accepting the testimony of other people who did. Isn't that like a double standard?
Samir,
Peter. No. I have to go. I have to get something to eat.
Yeah, okay.
It's like way past lunch, and I am really hungry. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I want to give. So I did a mistake earlier, and I really want to give a big shout out to Adam Scott. I'm really sorry, Adam. I wasn't I was still getting a handle on chat from sharing on this platform with my chat. So I really apologize, mate. I missed your membership. You gave out 10 memberships, and I will sort of give you a heads up in the description in the chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm so sorry for missing that. My fault completely. I do apologize. So Adam Scott's amazing, and I do want to give him a big shout out. I want to thank everybody for talking to me. I'm going to go. You can still argue all you want. It's just I'm going to close my stream and leave. That's all.
No, well, if you're closing your stream, then we'll wrap it up. And it's like.
Yeah, sorry, Peter, I can't. And sorry, Simi, I can't. I've been debating, and now I'm done 3 hours on.
Don't say you're sorry, Mark. You know better. You don't need to say
you're
sorry.
No, that's okay.
You're tired. That's
okay, Mark. I hopped in late, so I appreciate you even staying up this late.
Yeah, no worries at all. But thank you so much. See you, Dr. J. Thanks. See you, Isa. Always a pleasure, Isa. And Billy Bong's a lot. Amazing. Don't worry about it. Look, just shave your head. Just do it. Just embrace it. Embrace.
Yes.
Embrace.
I do, but I.
My head is shaving itself.
So it looks all
I'd
weird.
lose my.
My head is shaving itself. I'm growing forehead.
Okay. Well, take care.
Lose my job with
Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other, and I will see you in the next one. So, and I will put the debate up as soon as I can. Thank you so much, everybody.
So we're going
Catch you
to
later,
wrap
Mark.
it up. We're going to wrap it up. Right now, I think we're streaming to Mark's. So subscribe to Mark if you're not subscribed. Like, share, leave a comment afterwards, and also subscribe to Matters Now. And we'll leave it for there tonight. Thank you so much to everyone that came along, and good night. Have a good weekend, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks for having us. And if you click subscribe, you'll see